leaders to showcase their track records of raising ambition and leadership in delivering real-world actions to address climate change. We are here today to continue this conversation and discuss the need to align local and national strategies and unlock climate finance for local action. Without further ado, let me turn to my distinguished high-level opening panel. Honorable Excellency Sharif Al-Ulama, Under-Secretary of Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure of UAE, to take the floor. The floor is yours, Excellency.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Excellencies, honorable ministers, honorable mayors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all. On behalf of the United Arab Emirates and the COP28 presidency, it is my pleasure to first welcome you to the UAE and Dubai, and also to welcome you to this ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change. We are here today to put cities and urbanization at the heart of the climate agenda. I would like to recognize UN Habitat and the high-level champions for their leadership and partnership in co-hosting this meeting. I thank my fellow co-convening ministers for their support, and ministers and subnational leaders from around the world for their participation. COP28 is a platform to elevate the role of cities and urban areas in addressing climate change. But cities cannot act alone, and that is why we launched the Coalition for High Ambition Multi-Level Partnerships, CHAMP, at the summit with endorsements from over 60 countries, many of whom are in the room today, committed to partnering with cities, towns, states, and regions in planning, financing, implementing, and monitoring climate strategies, including the next round of nationally determined contributions. CHAMP taps into local power. Cities drive 70% of emissions, but they can hit near zero with existing technology and available measures, and more importantly, determination. To make it happen, we need to boost city skills and access to funding. CHAMP and this ministerial offer us the opportunity to show the world what is possible when all levels of government and society work together with a common purpose: to fast-track the energy transition, to fix climate finance, to put nature, people, lives, and livelihoods at the center of climate action, and to do all of this while being fully inclusive of everyone, everywhere. Thank you once again. I now have the pleasure to give the floor back to Maimouna Mohammed Sharif, the Executive Director of UN Habitat.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Thank you. I have to do multitasking, I think, as a woman. I'm chairing this session. At the same time also, I will give the opening remarks. Allow me to go to the rostrum to give my opening remarks. Thank you. Honorable Minister, Excellencies, distinguished speakers, Ms. Marlene Abigail Bine, Mayor of Makati, Philippines, Professor Diana, I hope I pronounce your name correctly, Olge Volsats, IPCC Vice Chair, Ms. Nandita Prashad, Managing Director of Sustainable Development Group of EBRD, Ms. Karishma Asarpota, UAE COP28 Youth Delegates, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Mayors, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored and proud to welcome so many of you to the second Ministerial Meeting on Urbanization and Climate Change. I greet the approximately more than 60 ministers and more than 100 mayors and more than 1,000 people here in the room and each one of you joining online across the globe. You will remember 1 year ago in Sharm el-Sheikh, the first ministerial meeting was held at COP27, bringing together high-level representatives from 50 countries. We successfully anchored multi-level climate action at COP and integrate the local voices into the COP process. Housing and urban development ministers now speak with the same voices as cities and local government. The strong endorsement of a coalition of high-ambition multi-level partnership, CHAM, for the climate action pledge by more than 64 countries is testament to this. However, we have a long way to go. Here at COP28, we look for strong commitment for multi-level action expressed across the decision and outcome statement. Only 2/3 of the NDCs have significant urban content. Less than 20 NDCs include clearly defined and costed urban climate investment. And this while over 55% of the world population live in urban areas and to be projected to 70% in 2050. Much has been said about multi-level climate action at this COP. Multi-level action will also frame this ministerial meeting. Let me conclude by sharing what this means to me and my expectation and our expectation for the ministerial meeting are: first, we understand that climate change is the defining challenge of our time. It requires all of us to act now. We understand, second, we understand that climate change is complex. It's not easy, but we must act together in a coordinated way across levels of governments, across ministries, across sectors, with civil society, academia, the private sector, the communities, the women's group, and the young people. Third, we understand that climate change affects communities differently. Mayors, the local leaders, are your first responders to crises that converge in cities. Thus, we need to make sure that finance reaches the local level. This ministerial meeting is establishing itself as the peak body for multi-level climate action. We are here to shape global commitment. We are here to bring the voices of cities to the global fora. More importantly, we are here to shape a resilient, just, sustainable future for all. And we are here to stay together. Thank you. Excellencies, now I resume my duty as a chair. That's what human is all about, yeah? Multitasking. And with no further ado, I will invite Her Excellency Razan Al Mubarak, UNFCCC COP28 high-level champion, to provide her opening remarks. Over to you, Excellency.
Thank you very much, Excellency Maimouna. Multitasking is what we need to do. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Excellencies, honorable mayors, esteemed colleagues, delegates, observers, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum. As the UN climate change high-level champion for COP28, it is an honor to be here today, recognizing and appreciating the many years of work that have gone in making this moment a reality. Each one of us here today are here because we recognize that subnational governments are the primary implementers of localized actions and the first responders to the disasters associated with climate change. The global race to resilience, the global race to zero, already recognize this critical role that non-party stakeholders have, including cities, subnational governments. Here, I'd like to pause for a moment and recognize the incredible local and subnational leadership we are seeing under these two campaigns, across cities, across towns, states, and regions. Paris is restoring its wetland systems. Cocody in the Ivory Coast is preserving forest biodiversity. Portsmouth in the UK has a coastal defense project which aims to protect 10,000 homes and over 700 commercial properties. The city of Salvador has an early warning system in place for landslides and flooding events. And the city of Lusaka's mayor's office in Zambia is working directly with informal communities every month to clear drains and mitigate flooding. The Marrakesh Partnership Framework emphasizes that cities, states, and regions serve as a vital platform for engaging policymakers across all pathway areas. These entities are essential partners in implementing the outcomes of the Conference of the Parties. Building upon the inaugural Urban and Climate Ministerial hosted at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh last year, this ministerial meeting today is a powerful example of an incredible platform. The announcement of the COP28 Presidency's Coalition for the High Ambition Multi-Level Partnership for Climate Action, CHAMP, on the 1st of December, recognizes and values the contribution from cities, states, and regions. As you've heard from Her Excellency Maimouna, CHAMP has been endorsed by now 65 countries, covering 27% of the global population, 53% of global GDP, and 32% of global emissions. I am greatly encouraged by the strides that have been made in the past few years and months on the urban agenda, and the strong calls for a multi-level governance approach that simplifies and connects the different agendas. With the announcement of CHAMP, we have an opportunity now to align and streamline the various subnational initiatives, such as the 2030 breakthroughs, the Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda, and SURGE, with other subnational initiatives, and create the bridge that is needed to empower the urban climate agenda. I also want to acknowledge the opportunity that this ministerial offers to send a strong signal that multi-level governance is a key enabler to close the implementation gaps, especially ahead of governments submitting a new round of more ambitious NDCs ahead of COP30 in 2025. Taking note of this outcome in the global stocktake is also an opportunity to cement and strengthen the multi-level governance needed to mobilize finance for local action. I would like to thank the Marrakesh Partnership and the local government and municipal authorities constituency for this incredible work. And I very much look forward to keep pushing the urban agenda forward to best empower cities and subnational authorities to deliver climate action. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Excellency Razan. Now over to a local leader voice, Ms. Marlene Abigail Bine, Mayor of Makati from Philippines. The floor is yours.
Good morning to everyone. I'm here today not only as the Mayor of Makati City, Philippines, but also as the nominee of the local governments and municipal authorities constituency and the focal point of the Innovative Finance Portfolio in ICLE's Global Executive Committee and a board member of GCOM. And I'm also here today representing and speaking in behalf of all subnational governments pursuant to my role as the member of COP28 Advisory Board. Yes, we women love to multitask. Climate change is a pressing global issue that demands local solutions, and local governments are at the forefront of this battle. These local governing bodies often exhibit more ambition in climate action compared to national governments, a fact that is evident from reports and initiatives presented at COP28. However, their potential is frequently hindered by limited access to climate financing. To address the crucial financial gap for local investments, there's a need to act at all levels of government. We are living in a unique time with the COP28 hosting the very first local climate action summit, which is a clear recognition of the critical role local leaders play in reducing emission and addressing climate risk. During LCAS, we also heard the call for a reform of MDBs, which needs to be urged to transform them into banks for cities, concentrating on comprehensive climate investment projects. The collaboration between MDBs and local governments should aim to establish dedicated urban financing programs, forge stronger connections between national policies and local actions, and develop financial instruments that align with urban realities. During LCAS, the COP28 presidency also launched the Coalition for High Ambition Multilevel Partnerships, or CHAMP. CHAMP is a product of consultations with subnational and national leaders. It has been endorsed by 65 countries mutually committed to finding a new, inclusive, and ambitious approach to updating nationally determined contributions through stronger collaboration among all levels of government. Through CHAMP, there is a real opportunity for inclusive dialogue that positions local governments as active participants in climate action and not just as beneficiaries. Therefore, we commend COP28 presidency for their bold leadership and inclusive approach and collaboration with the LGMA constituency. To conclude, the role of governments is indispensable in the fight against climate change. Our unique position creates or enables us to address the specific needs of our community swiftly and effectively through direct climate action. I invite all national governments to join CHAMP and work with local governments in a holistic and collaborative approach that is key to creating resilient, sustainable cities in the face of global climate challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor. CHAMP is surging. The science is clear on the climate change. Over to Professor Diana Worsak from the IPCC to provide a voice on climate change science.
Thank you, Chair. Your Excellencies, esteemed delegates, the IPCC warmly welcomes the Ministerial Meeting on Urbanization and Climate Change in order to reinforce mechanisms for urban-level climate action to achieve the targets of the Paris Agreement. This is because the science, as you just said, Madam Chair, has been clear. our reports attest that cities are not only where people suffer the brunt of climate impacts, they are also the most significant hubs for reducing emissions. Cities also generate 80% of global GDP and are the hotspots of economic growth, thus providing dynamic opportunities for climate-resilient development and innovation. Cities are also home to a broad range of opportunities to build synergies among mitigation, adaptation, as well as sustainable development goals, in neither of which we can afford continuing to operate in silos. Among the wide spectrum of such opportunities to be highlighted in the following interventions, I just want to give one example from our reports. Urban green and blue infrastructure, including street trees, permeable surfaces, and ponds, mitigate climate change and adapt to its impacts through sequestering carbon, reducing urban heat islands, cooling neighborhoods, reducing energy and water demand, as well as stormwater runoff. Globally, urban trees already store over 7 gigatons of carbon. Among the further sustainable development co-benefits are improving air quality, as well as mental and physical health of urban dwellers. With aggressive and immediate mitigation policies, urban greenhouse gas emissions can reach a maximum of 3 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2050. However, cities can only achieve near net zero emissions through deep decarbonization, entailing 3 broad strategies concurrently. 1, reducing urban energy and material consumption across all sectors. 2, electrification and switching to net zero emission resources. And 3, enhancing urban carbon uptake and stocks. Distinguished delegates, with increasing emphasis on cities, as well as burgeoning action in cities related to climate change, we need to ensure that efforts are underpinned by the best available science. We have no time to lose with failures or maladaptation. Therefore, the processes we are strengthening here today in this meeting will strongly benefit from the upcoming IPCC special reports on cities and climate change, which will uniquely scoped and co-written also by the urban practitioner community. The IPCC very much looks forward to an increasing cooperation with the UNFCCC and urban decision makers in the field of evidence-based urban climate action, which is pivotal to achieving the targets of the Paris Agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Now over to Ms. Nandita Prashad, Managing Director of Sustainable Infrastructure Group of EBRD, to provide us with the insight on climate finance. Over to you.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, on behalf of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, I welcome this opportunity to speak at this ministerial and share our experience of developing a direct financing program for cities. Cities are at the forefront of the climate crisis, but as we heard already, also lie at the heart of its solution. Cities in the EBRD regions face numerous challenges, including insufficient infrastructure investment, poor air quality, and historical legacies of high energy and carbon intensity. Many cities in our region are also particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, with increased heat stress and extreme weather events. So to address these challenges, the EBRD has developed its flagship urban program, EBRD Green Cities, with the aim of building a better and more sustainable future for cities and their residents. At the core of this program is working directly with the cities to assess and prioritize their environmental challenges and develop a Green City Action Plan, or GCAP as we call it, to tackle these challenges through policy interventions and clearly identified sustainable infrastructure investments. We currently have 60 green cities in the program, ranging from small cities like Mediaș in Romania to the largest ones in our region, Istanbul and Cairo. The program is very successful in that it actually delivers projects. So far, EBRD has provided nearly 3 billion euros to 88 green city infrastructure projects, many directly to cities and municipalities or their utilities. Importantly, these projects have a cumulative CO2 savings impact equivalent to taking 1 million cars off the road each year. So some examples of the kinds of projects these include: electric buses in Amman, pioneering solar thermal district heating in Pristina, metro projects in Cairo and Istanbul with a focus on resilience, affordable green housing in Ulaanbaatar, and flood protection in Chisinau. The program also has at its core the decentralization and empowering of cities, both in terms of decision-making, but also fiscal action. This is fully aligned with the COP28 presidency's CHAMP initiative, intended to drive better engagement between national and subnational governments, including cities, in the planning, financing, and implementation of climate strategies. EBRD targets adoption of the GCAPs only after consultations with all stakeholders to ensure true ownership by the municipalities and their residents and continuity across changing administrations. Most importantly, GCAPs are public documents available to all investors and financiers, other multilateral development banks, as well as the private sector. They are proving to be a great example of how to mobilize financing for cross-cutting mitigation and adaptation projects with a mix of public and private financing for cities. Needless to say, we at EBRD remain firmly committed to delivering climate finance to our cities and municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nandita. The youth is our future. So I'm happy that we have Ms. Karisma Asarpota, UAE COP28 youth delegates here. Over to you, Karisma.
Thank you. Good morning. Your Excellencies, Honorable Mayors and Ministers, and my dear colleagues. My name is Karisma Asarpota. I'm a UAE National Youth Climate Delegate and the co-founder of the Cities Working Group under YOUNGO. I'm very grateful to be here today speaking to all of you on behalf of youth. Intergenerational equity can only be achieved through providing equal opportunities and participation on all fronts. The 2021 Glasgow Climate Pact, paragraph 64, urged parties and stakeholders to ensure meaningful youth participation and representation in multilateral, national, and local decision-making processes. This is a commitment that we have all made to youth, and this includes everyone in this room today. We need to now move from discussion to action to meaningfully engage youth. But what does this actually look like? At the global level, we need to strengthen youth contribution in UNFCCC processes like the Global Stocktake, Nationally Determined Contributions, National Adaptation Plans, and National Biodiversity Strategies and Action Plans. Currently, only 8 NDCs mentioned youth. The youth stocktake that was conducted by YOUNGO assessed the prospects and challenges for integrating youth into the UNFCCC processes. This should be undertaken by all parties at both the national and subnational level. At the local level, we need to ensure the relevant and significant participation of youth in decision-making processes towards making our cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. For example, 26 cities and regions conducted local stocktakes. These were official contributions to the first global stocktake of the Paris Agreement facilitated by the local government and municipal authorities constituency. These local stocktakes, or mini COPs in city halls, not only included youth, but were led by youth in Nairobi, Kampala, and Accra. 4 main calls came from the youth-led local stocktakes. First, more inclusive planning processes, emphasizing the participation of climate-vulnerable and marginalized groups. Second, adaptive governance structures, a structure that allows for swift policy adjustments to accelerate implementation with strong measures to ensure accountability. Third, capacity building through climate education in schools and upskilling youth for green economy jobs. And fourth, increasing the access to finance. According to the Youth Climate Justice Fund, currently less than 1% of global climate finance supports youth projects. Access to funds is vital to implement and replicate youth-led projects to be able to achieve our climate goals. By 2030, youth will make up 60% of urban populations. The time is now. Include young voices and, more importantly, their passion, ideas, and innovation to help address pressing challenges in our urban areas today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karishma. We will now view a video message from Ms. Amina J. Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, cities are at the epicenter of climate action and sustainable development. They generate more than 80% of global GDP and 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. Cities must be leaders of climate action to keep the 1.5-degree goal within reach. Today, 1 billion people still live in urban slums and are especially vulnerable to climate disasters such as floods, heat waves, and sea level rise. 90% of the world's urban areas are located along coastlines. And with 70% of the world's population expected to live in cities by 2050, urban areas are becoming even more central to the transformations we seek to achieve in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The task before us at this second Ministerial Meeting on Urbanization and Climate Change is clear. We must articulate an urban transition plan that drives local climate action and sustainable development with greater ambition and more robust funding at speed and at scale. Mayors around the globe comprehend the urgency and impact of localization on climate mitigation and adaptation. They recognize the mutually reinforcing benefits for biodiversity, social protection, employment, food security, a just energy transition, and more. We are seeing more and more local and regional authorities actively pursuing strategies to advance to a circular economy and reduce emissions by promoting clean public transport, decreasing household energy consumption, improving waste management, and promoting green and resilient construction. But they cannot do it alone. We must scale up international cooperation to support local leaders and incentivize innovation, inclusivity, and integration across sectors. We must continue to advocate and recognize local achievements and provide local actors with adequate means of implementation to deliver on climate priorities. This includes the critical question of finance. All too often, cities are overlooked for funding. Climate and development finance must therefore prioritize communities that need our support the most, including the urban poor and displaced populations migrating towards cities in the hope of a better life, often fleeing the climate destruction of their rural environments and livelihoods. Excellencies, friends, your discussions today will help determine the outcome of COP28. I urge you to use the Coalition for High Ambition on multi-level partnerships to craft solutions that deliver tangible progress on the ground. let us also make full use of the existing initiatives, such as the Local 2030 Coalition and the Secretary-General's Advisory Group on Local and Regional Government to advance the 2030 Agenda, leaving no one behind. Building from COP28, let us keep the momentum high as we start 2024 and look to the summit of the future. I wish you all fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Amina, for your message. Now I would like to thank all my panelists. Please offer them a round of applause. And with this, I would like to invite my fellow co-convening countries and moderator, Mr. Gregor Robertson, the Global Ambassador from the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, to join me here on stage. Gregor, over to you.
You stay here.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody feeling? Good, good. Welcome to Cities Day here at COP28. A huge thank you to our host UN Habitat, to the COP28 presidency, who've brought us together in an unprecedented way. Cities, states, provinces, and regions representing here in Dubai for COP28. And I want to welcome the co-convening countries to the stage. United Arab Emirates and Brazil are already up here. I'll invite our Kenya, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, and Egypt representatives to join us here on the stage as co-conveners. And before we hear from our co-convening countries, I'll just open with a few remarks. First and foremost, acknowledging, as my friend and former mayor, fellow former mayor, Maimouna said, this is the second ever ministerial. It's also the first ever ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change that will issue a joint statement of outcomes and recommendations with the local Climate Action Summit. So that's an unprecedented step. What we say here today is important, critical to our future. This comes at a time when we highlight the roles that cities, states, provinces, regions, all the subnational governments can play to drive a very ambitious response from the global stocktake and inform the upcoming IPCC special report on climate change and cities, and of course the 2025 nationally determined contributions. As a former mayor in the beautiful city of Vancouver, Canada, I encourage ministers who are present today to endorse the COP28 presidency's CHAMP initiative. We've heard the CHAMP championed here this morning. We have 65 countries, and we want lots more countries joining and building that momentum, as Maimouna said, especially ahead of the NDCs in 2025. Our communities are facing unprecedented tragic impacts from climate disasters. People are counting on all of us to do everything that we can possibly do to tackle the climate crisis, to decarbonize and build resilience in all of our cities globally. That's what brings us here today and carries us forward. With that, I will give the floor to our co-convening countries, beginning with Kenya.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, fellow ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I speak here on behalf of Minister Alice Wahome, the Minister for Lands, Physical Planning, Public Works, Urban Development and Housing, Kenya. Good morning. It is with deep gratitude that I take this earliest opportunity to congratulate the organizers of this event, being a historic moment as we mark the second session of the ministerial conversation within the discourse of urbanization and climate change. We are in unison on this one subject matter that is one of the greatest development challenges of our time in this globe, as both urbanization and climate change have caught up with us in equal measure. We therefore have no choice but to strategically put measures in place to create much needed balance towards realization of sustainable development goals, and in particular the SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities with a focus to inclusivity, safety, resilience, and sustainability. Consideration of Kenya as co-chair of the second session of this ministerial segment is not only timely, but one of the best choices for COP28 as we bring a practical contribution to the deliberations here in COP28 in Dubai. Excellencies, the noise and the voice on matters of cities and climate change have grown louder, from the Paris Agreement, COP21, to the UN Climate Action Summit in 2019, and more recently during the Climate Action Summit 2023 in Nairobi. For instance, the UN Climate Action Summit 2019 presented us with an opportunity for cities and local governments to make a difference in the climate change discourse. At that time, the UN Secretary General identified infrastructure, cities and local actions as one of the key determinants in addressing the climate crisis that the world faces. At this point in time, we note that Kenya and Brazil, with the technical support of the UN Habitat and political mobilization of the United Cities and local governments of Africa, are now leading the global community in championing one of the outcomes of that 2019 summit, which was building of climate resilience for the urban poor. As we ponder our next course of action, I wish to emphasize the need for a comprehensive and coordinated approach to address urbanization and climate change. I say this with all clarity in my mind, well aware that many actors in urban space, from the national to subnational government, cities, municipalities, and administrative units, private sector, civil societies, and local communities, all must play their part if we are to win the war on climate change in the planet. Distinguished guests, further, we are called upon to address unplanned urban sprawl and its impact on the environment, while at the same time ensuring that the provision of basic services like social infrastructure in these rapidly growing urban areas is provided for. As we plan for sustainable cities, it is only logically good that we recognize the vulnerability of urban areas to climate-related disasters. Close attention should be given to the urban vulnerable population already living in poor urban neighborhoods. All these are tied to the need to adapt to changing weather patterns, which have greatly seen our seasons change unpredictably and therefore unmanageable. I call upon this session, therefore, to take note. In conclusion, it is important that we also include the gender lens in the design and the planning of our urban areas because this is something that has missed, and therefore in the resilience of our cities we have not planned for an inclusive genderization of our urban areas, therefore leaving the gender divide vulnerable and without attention. I conclude by saying that I wish to call upon fellow ministers as policymakers and practitioners in the urban sector present here and those that are back in the capitals to give declaration of the second ministerial session the attention it deserves towards full realization of its objectives. I look forward to an interactive session and wish all the delegates well in their negotiations and a successful COP28. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenya. We will now hear from our next co-convening country, Malaysia.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Ahlan wa salam bakum. Excellencies, according to World Meteorological Organization, WMO, 2023 is the year recorded with the highest temperature in history. Today, our world is 1.4 degrees warmer than the pre-industrial era since 1850, which is approximately 150 years ago. We recognize that climate change is now the most defining crisis of our time and the most significant challenge to achieve sustainable urban development. We only have one pathway ahead of us: sustainable urbanization and a green future. The time is now, and we have to act together to protect our livelihood. The world has spoken long enough about the catastrophic fate of torrential rain, massive flooding, and expanding oceans, winding up coastal cities and islands. The poor mobilization and lack of transparency in climate finance impedes developing nations to achieve mitigation and adaptation initiative. This is a global problem which needs a global commitment to immediately hammer out a transition plan to use renewable energy and help fund vulnerable nations. We have always hoped to see the last of COP, but it seems that it is not possible to convene for a resounding and resolute action by all, even when we have all agreed that we have run out of time to adequately respond to the climate change crisis. Excellencies, Malaysia is highly committed to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030 and reach net zero emissions by 2050. The National Energy Policy 2040 serves as a transformative force, establishing the groundwork for a just and inclusive energy transition, while our progressive low-carbon nation aspiration enables the Malaysian economy, capitalizing from the energy transition to remain resilient and sustainable. National Energy Transition Roadmap is designed to establish a sustainable energy pathway and a high-value green economy, fostering sustainable growth and job creation. Malaysia is also committed to promote broader adoption of electric vehicles. By 2025, 10,000 EV charging bays will be installed to facilitate EV users and contribute to emission reduction efforts. Malaysia has actively implemented high-impact initiatives to reduce the amount of solid waste, such as the drive-through recycling centers where public could trade trash for cash incentive. We are also committed to promote waste-to-energy technology as a viable solution to reduce solid waste. The transition from linear to circular economy is crucial, and we recently established the National Circular Economy Council to oversee the implementation and also progress of this emerging economic sector. Excellencies, there is not a moment to lose. We are in a do-or-die situation. We must act together now or face a looming extinction of nations and cultures. Malaysia reiterates the importance of the transparent and immediate mobilization of the lost and damaged funds, so to fully empower vulnerable cities and local governments to be at the forefront to fight this climate crisis. Save Mother Earth, save ourselves, and save our children. Let's do it together now. Shukran Jazilan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, and we will hear from the other co-convening countries in the second segment. We're now going to shift gears and hear from the Twinning for Multi-Level Action countries. And in this section of the meeting, we're going to hear from representatives from national level governments and subnational leaders together from their countries. And we are going to begin this, I believe it's 4 minutes from each country. And just a reminder to everyone, so 2 minutes per speaker. If people go over their 2 minutes, we're going to be here a lot longer this morning, into the afternoon, I would expect. So I'll just remind all the speakers to keep their remarks to 2 minutes. And in this case, we hear from the country and a subnational, starting with my home country of Canada.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. I'm very happy to share Canada's intervention with my friend and colleague, British Columbia's Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, George Heyman. Le Canada est heureux d'être l'un des premiers pays à soutenir la coalition pour la haute ambition des partenariats multiniveaux pour l'action climatique. Pour lutter contre la crise climatique, celle de la perte de biodiversité et de la pollution plastique, nous misons sur le renforcement des partenariats avec les provinces, les territoires, les peuples autochtones et les villes. Since the beginning of COP28, I've said consistently, keeping 1.5 within reach and halting and reversing biodiversity loss is only possible with ambitious policies, strong partnerships, and shared sense of accountability. This past summer, Canada experienced the worst wildfires in history, forcing the evacuation of tens of thousands of Canadians from their homes. To protect citizens, my government worked closely with those on the front line of these fires, including, for instance, city councillors and Indigenous leaders. In Canada, we have enshrined our 2030 NDCs of 40 to 45% emission reduction and our goal of carbon neutrality into law. The Act requires the Government of Canada to engage with provinces, territories, and Indigenous peoples when establishing a national emissions reduction target or when developing emissions reduction plan. En décembre 2022, le Premier ministre Trudeau a annoncé 800 millions de dollars pour soutenir 4 initiatives de conservation pilotées par les Autochtones. Ces initiatives sont exécutées sur le modèle du financement de projets pour la permanence. C'est de cette façon que nous atteindrons en grande partie nos objectifs de conservation pour 2030 et 2050 dans le cadre mondial de la biodiversité de Kunming-Montréal. Dernièrement, nous avons annoncé plusieurs projets de conservation représentant plus d'1 million de kilomètres carrés, soit 4 fois la taille de la Grande-Bretagne. Cities in Canada and around the world play a big role through the local management of buildings, transportation, water, waste, and land use. In Canada, municipalities control or influence over 50% of our greenhouse gases emissions. One area of partnership in the tackling of hydrocarbon and other non-CO2 gases. Yesterday, Canada joined the Global Cooling Pledge to reduce cooling-related emissions across all sectors by at least 68% globally by 2050. This pledge calls for the implementation of the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. If fully implemented, this deal can prevent up to an estimated 0.5 degrees Celsius of warming by 2100 and increase the health quality of cities everywhere. The Montreal Protocol and the associated Kigali Amendment has resulted in emission reduction equivalent to over 135 billion tons of CO2. That's why today I'm announcing a contribution of more than $30 million to the replenishment of the multilateral fund of the Montreal Protocol. Canada is proud to host a secretariat of this institution. The multilateral fund is regarded as a highly successful instrument and has ensured the compliance of developing countries with the protocol and phase out of most ozone-depleting substances globally. The more we support each other, the further we will go. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much. It is absolutely critical that local governments, subnational governments like the provinces in Canada and our national governments collaborate and work together toward a common goal. We have tremendous leadership at the community and local level. It is our desire as a province to support local governments in taking action to lower their emissions and serve their citizens through measures such as transit-oriented development, establishing building codes, step codes that people can adopt in various layers to achieve zero carbon building standards. We have tremendous and need tremendous support from our federal government in things such as making heat pumps affordable for people, supporting retrofits, as well as ensuring that we benefit across the entire nation and across our entire province from collaboration. We have just in British Columbia seen the worst wildfire season in British Columbia history, and 2 of the last 3 years have been the worst ever. Entire cities were threatened and municipalities threatened and evacuated. We have just updated our Emergency and Disaster Management Act to provide training, tools, and collaboration with local communities to better manage adaptation and climate resilience so that citizens do not face the threats and fears that they did this summer. We will continue to work with our federal government to reduce emissions and to support the small and large communities in British Columbia to do what they want to do, which is to secure the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Canada. Our next twins are from Germany. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, Germany is a federal country, and therefore we are strong believers in acting on the subnational level with regard to mitigation and adaptation. We firmly believe that some of the tasks can best be taken on this subnational level. Cities and municipalities are obviously closer to the people, so they are better in organizing also participatory processes. And I know what I'm talking about as I'm sitting next to the mayor of my home city of Bonn, Katja Dörner, who will speak after me. And this is why during Germany's G7 presidency, we strongly supported the creation of the Urban 7, the U7, and we are very grateful to Japan that they continued in doing so. We are also promoting the activities of cities through our development cooperation. We are running bilateral cooperations with many, many cities around the globe with over 11 billion euros, and we are also supporting global initiatives and funds in this field with 200 million euros. This funding can make, in our view, a big difference, as we can see from the C40 cities finance facility that we are also supporting. Dear colleagues, in this context, Germany welcomes and supports a new CHAMP, the coalition of high ambition multi-level initiatives. We believe that CHAMP has great potential for the development of more holistic approaches to implement NDCs on the ground. In this spirit, dear colleagues and friends, let us jointly work to transform our cities to become more climate sensitive, more resilient, and by the way, also socially just, in order to reach both our Paris Agreement commitments as well as our 2030 agenda.
So thank you very much, esteemed Chair, Excellencies, dear fellow mayors. Multi-level action and collaboration is in my DNA as a mayor of Bonn and former parliamentarian, as a member of the German Council on Sustainable Development and vice president of the German Association of Cities, and of course in my work as ICLAI co-chair Climate Action. And it is in my city's DNA where a participatory process has given us our vision for climate neutral Bonn 2035 latest, which is now brought to life through a council-approved plan of action, jointly engaging our administration, civil society, and local stakeholders. The Paris Agreement made it very clear keeping climate change within livable 1.5-degree boundaries means all hands on deck, joining forces and doing so in the most synergetic way possible. This is what local governments have understood and translated into action for many years now, and they have taken the global agendas to their own town halls. Like Bonn, many cities have led Talanoa dialogues and are holding local stocktage events right now. We engage in initiatives led by COP presidencies and national governments. And this COP28 is a milestone, a breakthrough for multi-level action. The local Climate Action Summit has rallied mayors and national leaders in a major demonstration of joint ambition. With the Coalition for High Ambition Multi-Level Partnerships, more and more parties are renewing their commitment to the vision of the Paris Agreement and their readiness for truly collaborative multi-level action. And I'm highly pleased that the participating governments, including ours, have taken this bold step. And today, we are starting the next phase of climate action by turning our commitment into action and working together to generate results which we can take to Belém in 2030. And looking over to State Secretary Flassbert right next to me, I think that the federal system in Germany can be one of the role models for collaboration and mechanism between different levels of government. And I would like to offer the well-established Daring Cities Forum happening annually back-to-back to the June climate talks to be used as a platform for concrete action and multi-level collaboration. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you to Germany. We have a triplet in this case. We're going from twins to triplets because we're going to go to a speaker on behalf of the EU from the European Commission joining our German delegation.
Thank you, dear Ms. Sharif. Ladies and gentlemen, ministers and excellencies, let me first thank the UN Habitat and the COP28 presidency for organizing this meeting. It is my honor to speak today on behalf of the European Commission to highlight the activities and commitments of the European Union to pursue climate actions in urban areas. The European Union has established very ambitious goals to become climate neutral by 2050, and we have been continuously supporting our member states, regions, and all territories, but in particular urban areas, for the past decades, notably through investments directly contributing to their integrated development strategies. In this context, cohesion policy is one of the largest investment policies in the European Union, investing over 379 billion euros in 7 years towards sustainable development, with substantial parts of these going for the transition of cities. We expect that many projects will be developed and implemented under the framework of the new European Bauhaus initiative, combining the principles of sustainability and participatory approaches. But we have the ambition to mobilize all territories in the green and just transition using our regulatory and financial tools, and we are constantly working on improving and providing the most coherent, accessible support for cities. Beyond funding, we are accompanying all local authorities in building their knowledge and capacities to develop, manage, and implement their strategies and projects. We have set up a European urban initiative addressed to all cities in the EU for this purpose, with available means to support climate actions in cities, but cities can also benefit from joining other EU-level initiatives such as Climate Neutral and Smart Cities mission under the Horizon Europe programme. We are also working within the partnerships of the Urban Agenda for the Union to improve our regulations, funding and knowledge for cities, and we are strongly cooperating with the OECD and the World Bank, for example, on the role of small and medium-sized cities and functional areas, including urban-rural links in wider territorial developments. I believe that all these actions reaffirm the continuous engagement of the European Union to promote sustainable urban development through multi-level governance and multi-stakeholder efforts, and we are happy to share our experiences globally. Through its international partnerships, the European Union is supporting strong collaboration among countries, regions and cities to implement the goals of the new urban agenda and the climate targets of the Paris Agreement. For example, in the southern neighborhood of the EU, we accompany cities in developing, implementing and funding their energy and climate plans. We also support cities and regions through international urban and regional cooperation program. Empowering transformation towards sustainability and inclusiveness needs to happen everywhere through joint governance and ownership, leaving space for elaborating place-based approaches, focusing on local challenges and potentials, and we are looking forward to sharing knowledge and learning from our partners globally, because only together we can deliver strong policies backed up by efficient implementation to achieve common goals of the green transition and ensure balanced territorial development, leaving no place and no person behind. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the delegates from Jordan.
Excellency, mayors, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum. Allow me to speak in Arabic. أتحدث اليوم باسم معالي وزير البيئة وباسم مدينة عمان. بداية يسرني مشاركتكم اليوم في الاجتماع الوزاري بشأن التحضر وتغير المناخ، خاصة في ظل الظروف الاستثنائية والتي تكون فيها المدن في خط المواجهة الأول مع التحديات الإقليمية والعالمية والتحديات الحضارية المتمثلة بالنمو السكاني المتزايد كنتيجة مباشرة للهجرات وموجات اللجوء المتكررة وآثار التغير المناخي، الأمر الذي يستلزم بذل كافة الجهود لبلوغ الغايات المشتركة ومواكبة النمو المتسارع بخطط وبرامج تعزز من جودة الحياة لبناء مدن منعة ومستدامة وشاملة، وفي إطار التزامها بخطة التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030 وتحقيق التزامها المحلي في تخفيض انبعاث الكربون، بذلت عمان جهوداً كبيرة لتحقيق الاتساق في السياسات والاستراتيجيات والخطط والمشاريع والبرامج المحلية، ومن خلال موائمتها مع أهداف التنمية المستدامة العالمية ومع أطر السياسات على المستوى الوطني. ومع ضرورة التوسع في تضمين أهداف التنمية المستدامة، أطلقت عمان برعاية ملكية خطتها الاستراتيجية للأعوام 2022-2026، حيث شكلت التوجيهات الملكية والأهداف الوطنية وأهداف التنمية المستدامة العالمية واحتياجات المواطنين مدخلات بناء هذه الخطة، بالإضافة إلى الموائمة مع رؤية التحديث الاقتصادي للأردن والتي أطلقتها الحكومة الأردنية في العام الماضي ل10 سنوات المقبلة. وتحقيقاً لالتزامنا كأحد أعضاء شبكة الC40 بأن تصبح عمان متعادلة كربونياً في العام 2050، فقد عملنا على تحديث خطتنا لمواجهة آثار التغير المناخي لتحديد الطريق للوصول إلى هذا الهدف. وانطلاقاً من هذه الخطط، فقد تم العمل على العديد من المشاريع الاستراتيجية التي تدعم جهودنا في مواجهة والتخفيف من آثار التغير المناخي وتحقيقاً لمسؤولياتنا كجزء من المجتمع الدولي، على الرغم من أن تأثير مدينة عمان على المناخ هو محدود جداً، وذلك من خلال تطوير شراكات تطبق مبادئ الحكم الرشيد، فضلاً عن ممارسات التخطيط والتنظيم والرصد والتقييم والمتابعة الفعالة، وذلك كوسيلة للمساهمة في موائمة السياسات المحلية مع الأهداف الوطنية. فعلى سبيل المثال تنبثق خطة عمان للتغير المناخي مع السياسات والأهداف الوطنية، حيث تم إطلاق خطة عمان للتغير المناخي 2050 في عام 2019، وكانت أول خطة عمل خاصة بالتغير المناخي في المنطقة، وركزت الاستراتيجية على التخلص من الكربون من اقتصاد المدينة وتطوير المنعة ضد تغير المناخ. كما تم تطوير خطة عمان مدينة خضراء في العام 2021 لتحسين الأداء البيئي لمواجهة التحديات البيئية الحضارية الحالية والناشئة، وتم إعداد هذه الخطط بتعاون مباشر مع وزارة البيئة باعتبارها الجهة الوطنية التي تتحمل مسؤولية العمل المناخي، حيث تتوافق هذه الخطط مع السياسات الوطنية للتغير المناخي وتساعد على الوفاء بالتزامات الأردن بموجب المساهمات المحددة وطنياً، والتي تم تحديثها في عام 2021 من خلال زيادة الالتزام بخفض انبعاثات الغازات الدفيئة من 14% إلى 31%، مع توجه انتقال البلاد نحو اقتصاد ومناخ منخفض الكربون وتنمية تتعامل بشكل مرن مع المناخ. كما تهتم عمان بتطوير الشراكات بين القطاعين العام والخاص، وتنسق جهودها لزيادة مشاركة القطاع الخاص في مشاريع البنية التحتية الرئيسية. كما أقامت علاقات شبكة دولية من البلدان والمدن والمنظمات، مما يوفر فرصاً للتبادل المستمر للمعرفة والخبرة ويؤثر على تنمية القدرات المحلية، حيث تم تنفيذ مجموعة من المشاريع في عمان من خلال التعاون الدولي لتحسين الوصول إلى البنية التحتية والخدمات الحضرية وتوفرها عبر عدد من القطاعات، مثل قطاع الرعاية الصحية والطاقة والنقل العام والتخطيط الحضري وغيرها. فعلى سبيل المثال، وضمن مبادرة الوصول إلى الإدارة المتكاملة لإدارة مياه الأمطار باستخدام الحلول المبنية على الطبيعة، فقد قامت عمان بدمج التصميم الحضري المراعي للمياه مع مبادئ أنظمة الصرف الحضري المستدامة. فقد تم التعاون مع اليوان هابيتات من خلال مشروع زيادة منعة مدينة عمان للفيضانات المفاجئة لتحديد المواقع المهددة لخطر الفيضانات المفاجئة، بهدف تقليل مخاطر الفيضانات في المناطق الحرجة بنسبة 50% في عام 2040. نؤكد على التزام الأردن ومدينة عمان في دفع الجهود لتنفيذ أهداف التنمية المستدامة. شكراً.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We're going to hear from our last set of twins here from the nation of Kiribati.
As a small island developing state and low-lying atoll nation, Kiribati finds itself at the forefront of climate change impact. With a population of 119,488 based on the 2020 census, nearly 59% of our population reside in urban areas, while the remainder inhabit the 20 island or rural councils. Urbanization and climate change is a topic which is embedded within our regional strategies expressed in the Pacific Strategy for 2050, but requires further elaboration in terms of the impact of climate change and the irreversible damage on our coastal communities, housing, infrastructure, urban centers, and urban corridors which connect people and market, contributing to our respective economic development. Raising ambitions to meet emission reduction, targeting an ambition consistent with a 1.5 degrees Celsius target, and simplifying the access to adaptation and loss and damage funds for local governments and communities at the front line of climate change are crucial steps. Kiribati's long-term development vision, Kiribati KV20, set a 20-year trajectory which matches this ambition towards transformative adaptation and resilience development. Mr. Chair, I wish to reaffirm the Kiribati government's unwavering support to call for special consideration on climate finance and technical support targeting urbanization to ensure that they are better equipped to respond to the climate crisis. And I have no doubt that the SETI initiative endorsing during the COP27 is the stepping stone towards the implementation of support provided for urbanization, which considers coastal communities and rural development. I sincerely thank all participants for their attention and commitment to addressing the pressing challenges we collectively face. Kamraba, and thank you all.
Thank you. Will we hear from the city as well? Is your mayor here?
My name is Paran Gubaro, the mayor of the Nainanu Urban Council, TUC on South Tarawa in Kiribati. Despite the difficult circumstances just outlined by the Honorable Minister, local councils like TUC have no choice but to take the matter into our own hands and adapt to climate change. We cannot do this alone. However, we are grateful that we work together with government and our development partners. I will share the local responses which, combined with all other councils, help shape Kiribati's national ambitions to cope with climate-related disasters. 1, we have mainstreamed climate change and our responses into our local planning. 2, we have embarked on a program of mangrove planting on coastal lines to help protect and alleviate erosions to our coastal areas with the help of the UN and other agencies. We only hope that this response will in time save us. 3, nature-based solutions alone are insufficient. We are also building seawalls to protect infrastructure, roads, and public areas that keep being bashed by storms. Communities provide labor, while government provides machinery and materials. 4, another challenge for us is the high energy cost. Energy poverty is therefore a real issue and one which needs more sustainable solutions. Whilst we do our part to adapt to climate change, we are extremely worried about the IPCC warning of global warming exceeding the 1.5 degree mark by 2027. This is why we believe that multi-level action and collaboration is needed to raise the ambition of every nation's NDCs. In closing, I wish to emphasize the importance for local climate action to advance sustainable urban development in line with the 2030 agenda, more particularly the most vulnerable countries like Kiribati. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the gold star goes to Kiribati for keeping a strong message on time. Thank you for respecting the clock. We are going to now hear from interventions on multi-level climate action and partnerships. We're first going to hear interventions from ministers, followed by government representatives. And just to remind everyone, when I give you the floor, make sure to hit the button on your microphone, the red light, so you know your mic is live. I will call the country name first, and then it's go time for you. We have 2 minutes each, and again, I'll remind everyone, time is ticking away on us this morning. We've gone well over time already, so everyone staying under their 2 minutes is very important to keep this session from going on too long or for us being booted out of the room. So keep under 2 minutes. If you have to revise and shorten down your remarks, I know your staff worked very hard with you on these remarks, but keeping in mind everyone needs to speak here today, please keep those remarks under the 2 minutes. And there will be, the clock ticks down and then it starts ticking back up again. So if it's going up, you're over time and it's time to wrap up. Thank you very much. And we're going to hear now from ministers, beginning with the country of Bahrain.
شكرا معالي الرئيس. أيها الحضور الكريم، بداية أتقدم بجزيل الشكر لدولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة الشقيقة على كرم الضيافة وعلى هذا الجهد الرائع في استضافة وتنظيم هذه القمة العالمية المهمة. لقد خطت مملكة البحرين خطوات متقدمة على صعيد تنفيذ الخطط والمشاريع التنموية بما يتوافق مع التزامات المملكة نحو اتفاقية باريس للتصدي للتغير المناخي واتفاقية سندي لتقليل المخاطر والكوارث وأهداف التنمية المستدامة 2030، واضعين نصب أعيننا التخفيف من تداعيات تغير المناخ والتكيف معه عبر تعزيز مبادئ الاستدامة من خلال تحديث السياسات التخطيطية والإسكانية. وأود هنا التنويه إلى تجربة المملكة في مجال التخطيط والتطوير العمراني والحضري بالتوافق مع الهدف 11 من أهداف التنمية المستدامة 2030، حيث تبذل الحكومة جهوداً مستمرة لتطوير المعايير التخطيطية بما يضمن استدامة المدن عبر تحديث الاشتراطات التنظيمية للتعمير لتعزيز الإقبال على الأراضي الزراعية من خلال جملة من التعديلات، منها إضافة نسبة الاستعمال التجاري يصل إلى 20% من مساحة الأرض، وزيادة نسبة البناء السكني في الأراضي الزراعية بنسبة تصل إلى 90% بتبني حلول البناء العمودي دون الإخلال بالمسطحات الخضراء. كما حرصت الحكومة على إدراج مقومات الاستدامة في كافة مراحل التخطيط وتنفيذ المشاريع الإسكانية، فتم الاهتمام بالنواحي البيئية وأنسنة المدن عن طريق زيادة المساحات الخضراء وتوفير المساحات والمسارات المخصصة لممارسة الرياضة والدراجات الهوائية لتقليل استخدام المركبات. وقد روعي في تصميم الوحدات السكنية استخدام المواد والتصاميم الصديقة للبيئة، ومنها ما تم العمل عليه في مدينة سلمان التي تعد مدينة نموذجية وهي الأكبر على مستوى المملكة، حيث تم اتباع أساليب هندسية لنظام التبريد الطبيعي وخفض استهلاك الطاقة الواردة من الخط الرئيسي بنسبة 80%، كما أن جميع المسطحات الخضراء في المدينة مزودة بأنظمة ري تعتمد 100% على مياه الصرف الصحي المعالج. شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bahrain. And just as a reminder to everyone, we are going through the countries in alphabetical order, starting with ministers. Looks like we have 16 ministers, 16 countries to speak, and then we go back alphabetical order to the A country. Azerbaijan will start the next segment of representatives from those countries. So our next speaker is from Chad.
Merci. Madame la directrice exécutive d'ONU Habitat, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs les maires, distingués participants, je voudrais avant tout propos exprimer mes remerciements aux Émirats arabes unis de la ville de Dubaï pour leur hospitalité. Mesdames et Messieurs, le Tchad, de par sa position géographique, a une vocation agro-silvopastorale et il est l'un des pays les plus exposés aux effets de changement climatique. Sur le plan de démographie d'occupation de sol, il existe de fortes disparités en termes de répartition des hommes et des ressources et des infrastructures de développement économique. Par exemple, plus du tiers du pays constitué de déserts et de massifs montagneux. Environ 32% de 17 millions d'habitants vivent en milieu urbain. Un cheptel de plus de 140 millions de têtes dépend essentiellement de l'élevage classique. Les établissements humains occupent environ 0,3% du territoire national sur 1 284 000 km². Pour corriger cette disparité et lancer les bases solides d'un développement durable, le gouvernement du Tchad s'est résolument engagé ces dernières années à mettre en place les documents stratégiques de planification. Aussi, lors de la conférence d'habitat 3 tenue en octobre 2016 à Quito, en Équateur, nous avons présenté la position commune africaine et cela a été pris en compte dans le nouvel agenda urbain. Par cette position commune, nous avons pris l'engagement du développement de villes plus résilients et durables. Mesdames et messieurs, malheureusement, au moment où la dynamique en termes de mobilisation de ressources se faisait suivant les orientations et les programmes d'investissement prioritaires de mise en œuvre de ces documents, le Tchad, comme d'autres pays d'Afrique subsaharienne, a été secoué par des catastrophes naturelles. Rien que l'année dernière, en 2022, les inondations pluviales et fluviales ont affecté 19 provinces sur les 23 que compte le pays, forcé le déplacement de 1 500 000 personnes, détruit plus de 500 000 hectares de champs, emporté plus de 19 000 têtes de bétail, détruit plus de 80 000 maisons. Face à cette situation qui interpelle et remet en cause certains efforts consentis, et grâce à la clairvoyance du général Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno, le Tchad s'est inscrit dans une vision d'adaptation, de transformer certains effets des inondations en opportunités. Aussi, la question d'occupation du sol ne pouvant plus être dissociée de celle d'établissement humain. Le Tchad a engagé des réformes foncières et un document politique foncière national du Tchad vient d'être validé par le comité multi-acteurs et sera soumis à l'approbation du gouvernement. Cependant, eu égard à la complexité des effets du changement climatique, beaucoup d'autres défis sont à relever. C'est pourquoi nous sollicitons vivement l'appui technique et financier de tous les partenaires et principalement du Fonds mondial pour le développement de villes, pour les études de faisabilité et de mise en œuvre de programmes ambitieux. Mesdames et messieurs, je voudrais terminer mon propos en exprimant l'adhésion de mon pays à l'Alliance des ministres africains pour le financement du développement urbain en saluant les efforts consentis. Aussi, je voudrais, dans cette perspective, proposer cette réunion, qu'elle soit systématiquement inscrite à l'ordre du jour de toutes les conférences des parties COP à venir. Je propose que nous sollicitons collectivement l'engagement des présidents des COP pour inscrire cette rencontre parmi les événements récurrents, renforçant ainsi notre partenariat mondial dans la lutte commune pour des villes résilientes. Je fais observer à la fin que depuis 2015, à la COP21 de Paris, beaucoup de promesses ont été dites, mais rien n'a été fait. J'appelle le monde à lever les yeux sur les dangers à venir. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Merci. The next country is Cuba.
Buenos días. El Plan de Estado para la implementación de la nueva agenda urbana en Cuba constituye el programa de acción multinivel de la política urbana nacional. Su elaboración fue resultado de la construcción colectiva. Se mantiene su monitoreo y evaluación mediante las rendiciones de cuentas a los órganos administrativos y legislativos de la nación. Su gestión se realiza desde el ámbito nacional y local. Han sido favorecidos el 33% de los municipios del país, que involucran el 46% de la población, que hoy pueden mostrar buenas prácticas en el desarrollo local, en la producción de materiales de construcción, uso eficiente y utilización de energías renovables, soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, rehabilitación de servicios, espacios públicos, mejoramiento en general del hábitat, todo con asistencia técnica de ONU Hábitat. Desde este plan de Estado y la tarea Vida se desarrollan proyectos para reducir vulnerabilidades en asentamientos costeros expuestos. Se fortalecen capacidades que permiten acometer medidas de mitigación y adaptación de forma paulatina y anticipatoria para hacerlas más resilientes y adaptables, lo cual demuestra la voluntad política de los Estados cubanos en el cumplimiento de los acuerdos de París. El recrudecimiento del bloqueo económico, comercial y financiero que durante más de 60 años el gobierno de Estados Unidos ha impuesto al pueblo cubano constituyen el principal obstáculo para avanzar en la ejecución de acciones de adaptación. Cuba, pequeño estado insular, como consecuencia de los efectos del cambio climático, es azotado por eventos meteorológicos extremos cada vez más frecuentes. Además, se han afectado la elevación del nivel del mar para el 2100 de forma parcial o gradual 155 asentamientos costeros con una población de 4.900 personas. Se han ejecutado acciones de reubicación o acomodo de 631 viviendas que representan el 16% de los afectables. Por otra parte, al interior de los asentamientos humanos se transformaron 1.152 barrios, beneficiándose 6.834 familias. Con estas acciones se redujo de 4,45 a 4,04 la proporción de la población urbana residiendo en barrios precarios. Destacar que Cuba favorece y apoya iniciativas y oportunidades de cooperación de financiamiento dirigida al desarrollo de ciudades y comunidades resilientes y sostenibles para enfrentar el cambio climático y la prevención de desastres, la cooperación sur-sur y el acceso a mecanismos financieros. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Minister. Our next country is Ethiopia. The Minister from Ethiopia.
Good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, Maimouna Mohammed Sharif, Executive Director, UN Habitat, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the government of United Arab Emirates, the UN Habitat and UN Climate Change High-Level Champion for COP28 for this important meeting on urbanization and climate change at COP28. Ethiopia is undergoing rapid and dramatic urbanization. The urban population is growing at over 4.5% a year, primarily driven by migration to urban areas, which is likely to accelerate as economic opportunities in cities continue to expand, and by the rise of new urban settlements. Of the total population of Ethiopia in 2023, some 100 million people, roughly 26%, are living in the urban settlements. By 2025, this number is expected to reach 28%, and by 2035, some 40% of the total population will reside in urban areas. Your Excellencies, developing countries like Ethiopia are more vulnerable to the adverse impacts of climate variability and change. Ethiopia has been identified as one of the most vulnerable countries to climate variability and change, and is frequently faced with climate-related hazards, commonly drought and floods. Ethiopia has climate change policies, strategies, and programs in place, and has started adaptation interventions against adverse effects of climate change. Ethiopia has put in place a climate-resilient green economy strategy, and in 2020, the term Low Emission and Climate Resilient Development Strategy 2020 to 2050. Cities are centers for economic growth of Ethiopia, but they are facing the onslaught of the climate crisis. Both extreme and slow onset of events have compromised urban infrastructure, including transport, water, sanitation, and energy system. Urban population exposed to high temperature and are prone to flooding. And as the mass of humanity continues to locate in our urban areas, we have a formidable challenge ahead of us to build climate-friendly and resilient cities. In order to overcome these challenges, first and foremost, we are very much committed around urban cooling, sustainable building, transport system, and construction in our development plans, programs, and projects. Initiatives such as integrated waste management and urban green infrastructure development are few initiatives worth mentioning. We are also working with development partners to strengthen the regulatory and legal frameworks to institutional coordination mechanisms to integrate these initiatives within urban system by involving small and micro enterprises as a business entities to ensure financial sustainability.
Thank you.
The second initiative is nature-based solution, which one of the biggest and notable achievements of FAR registered in the Green Legacy Initiative of His Excellency Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed. With Green Legacy, Ethiopia has planted 32 billion trees, both in cities and rural areas between 2019 to 2022, involving participation more than 20 million people. This makes our cities better, and it is nature-based solution which store carbon, reduce energy use, and protect us from extreme weather events. Finally, I would like to assure that the government of Ethiopia and our ministry reaffirms the commitment for realization of COP28 agenda and beyond. And we will work with our development partners to bring these national commitments to implementation at the city level. In this juncture, we invite our international development partners to enhance their cooperation in realization of the urbanization and climate change agenda in the Africa as a whole and in Ethiopia in particular. I thank you all.
Thank you. So we're tending to go minutes over time with each speaker, so I'm going to have to start. I will give you a voice reminder when you're at your 2 minutes. I know people are focused on their comments, so I will just chime in at 2 minutes to remind you to wrap up. And our next country to speak is Finland.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Honorable chairs, excellencies, distinguished delegates. It is an honor to address this auspicious event here today on Finland's Independence Day. Ladies and gentlemen, I am also very thrilled to be joined here by the Vice Mayor of Tampere, Mr. Ilkka Sasi. As you know, Finland aims to be carbon neutral by 2035. Achieving this ambitious target will require significant emission reductions in all sectors of society. Many Finnish cities and municipalities have taken local action and set even more ambitious climate goals. The city of Lahti has garnered worldwide attention with its goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2025. The city of Turku plans to commemorate its 800th birthday in 2029 by achieving carbon neutrality. The cities of Tampere, Espoo, Helsinki, and Lappeenranta have pledged to reach carbon neutrality by 2030. The commitment and action of these cities means that a third of Finland's population will be living in climate-neutral cities in 6 years from now. The built environment consumes a major part of our society's resources. The heating and maintenance of buildings requires a lot of energy in our cold climate, and construction swallows vast amounts of materials. This is why buildings and construction are high on the Finnish climate agenda. We are revising our building legislation in order to meet future needs and widening the scope of our climate action to the whole life cycle of carbon emissions in the built environment. We consider circular economy to be an essential part of the solution. The power of local action is also in empowering people and enhancing citizens' informed participation in combating climate change. Emission reduction measures must be carried out in a way that is fair from a social and regional perspective. Climate education is a cornerstone of just transition. Our civil society is very active in climate action, with many organizations involved. Citizens widely support Finland's climate objectives and action. 4 in 5 people in Finland think that we need urgent action to mitigate climate change. This means that together we are forging a carbon-neutral future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. As we hear now, we have a little gong that's going to be ringing when we go over the 2 minutes, so that my microphone isn't interrupting the cameras and everything. So when you hear that gong, it's wrap-up time. And we are going to Ghana next. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The government of Ghana is committed to fostering sustainable urban development and mitigating the impact of climate change. As a member of the African Ministers for Urban Development, Financing, AMUF, and in alignment with the Global ABC Initiative, Ghana is dedicated to decarbonizing the building and construction sector, recognizing the crucial role both play in our climate action endeavors. Through collaboration with stakeholders, we aim to implement innovative solutions, embracing sustainable practices that reduce carbon emissions and enhance energy efficiency. Furthermore, Ghana pledges its support for the Coalition for High Ambition Multi-Level Partnership, CHAM, and the Urban Opportunity Fast Forward Initiative, UFFI, for accelerated access to climate finance for sustainable urbanization. By joining these initiatives, Madam Chair, we anticipate valuable support in advancing our urban resilience agenda. We envision UFFI and CHAM as catalysts for transformative change, providing resources and expertise to fortify our cities against the adverse impacts of climate change. As we engage in this global alliance, Ghana looks forward not only contributing to UFFI and CHAM's objectives, but also reaping the benefits of shared knowledge, technology transfer, and financial support. We expect that through this collaboration, we will fortify our cities, making them more resilient to climate change-related challenges, while simultaneously fostering sustainable and inclusive urban development. We support the request to include Ministerial Meeting on urbanization and climate change in the official agenda of future COPs. Together, let us build a resilient and sustainable future for our urban landscape. Thank you, Your Excellencies.
Thank you very much to Ghana. Our next country to speak, a minister from Guinea-Bissau.
Bom dia. Excelências ministros responsáveis do setor urbano, ilustres participantes, digníssimos senhores, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. Com a devida vênia, quero felicitar e agradecer as honrosas presenças de vários atores intervenientes do setor urbano, que despenderam seus tempos para hoje poder refletir as necessidades, não só da preservação, mas sobretudo de como financiar o planejamento sustentável e resiliente das nossas cidades, que estão aquém do desejado e com pouca esperança de uma mudança significativa nos próximos 10 anos, se não forem tomadas medidas corajosas para ajudar a Guiné-Bissau, que tem 60% dos jovens que compõem a população nacional. Ilustres, acredito que o Fundo Mundial para o Desenvolvimento Urbano, através da Aliança dos Ministros, do qual somos parte, deve encabeçar o processo corajoso e ambicioso do financiamento. A Guiné-Bissau continua engajado aos objetivos a vários níveis e fiel ao compromisso da Agenda de Paris. A Guiné-Bissau continua determinado em alcançar os objetivos da ODS, tendo em conta a articulação necessária dentro do quadro administrativo que interliga o funcionamento entre o governo central, regional e as várias administrações sectoriais. Quero informar a todos que o nosso país está determinado em realizar as autarquias nos próximos 4 anos, permitindo a organização e o desenvolvimento das outras localidades. Este processo não será possível sem os parceiros estratégicos, como, por exemplo, a ONU Habitat. Acredito que a organização da COP deve aumentar de forma significativa a participação dos intervenientes do setor urbano, tendo em consideração a grande problemática da mudança climática que acontece nas cidades. Então, são os ministros das áreas urbanas, os prefeitos, os autores, os verdadeiros responsáveis para as zonas resilientes. A Guiné-Bissau quer conter a desmatação, conter os abates dos mangás, que são essenciais para o nosso ecossistema, quer estabelecer o quadro resiliente e sustentável para efetivamente ter um planejamento para todos. Bem-haja.
Thank you very much, Minister. We go next to Malta, for the Minister from Malta.
Distinguished guests, esteemed delegates, and honored participants, I stand before you with heartfelt gratitude to express our sincere thanks to the remarkable city of Dubai for its unwavering hospitality during the pivotal COP28 conference. As we gather for COP28, the urgency of addressing climate change becomes ever more evident. Our planet is at crossroads, and we must act decisively. Climate change affects not only our environment, but also our communities, economies, and crucially, our homes. As the person responsible for the social and affordable accommodation sector in Malta, I strongly believe that the accommodation, a basic human need, is intrinsically linked to climate challenges. Extreme weather events displace communities, exacerbating housing crisis. Rising sea levels threaten coastal dwellings, while wildfires encroach upon homes. It's clear that our approach to accommodation must evolve in tandem with our efforts to combat climate change. We need sustainable, resilient housing solutions that minimize carbon footprints. From energy-efficient designs to eco-friendly materials, innovation must drive our construction practices. Simultaneously, we must address the inequality in the impact of climate change on housing, ensuring vulnerable communities are not left without adequate shelter. This goes hand in hand with our concrete actions that Malta, the smallest EU member state, has been taking to address climate change. I mention a few. More investment committed to electrical distribution, kickstarting the discussion to invest in wind turbines, and strengthening renewable energy schemes for the Maltese public, amongst other incentives. COP28 is an opportunity for global collaboration. Let us commit to policies that incentivize sustainable housing practices, invest in resilient infrastructure, and support communities disproportionately affected by climate-related housing challenges. The decisions we make here will shape not just our environment, but the very spaces we call home. In closing, let us be architects of change, building a future where accommodation is both a sanctuary and a testament to our commitment to a sustainable and climate-resilient world. Thank you.
Thank you, Malta. Our next speaker is the Minister from Nepal.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and namaste. Let me begin by thanking the host for organizing this event. I feel privileged to address this gathering and share Nepal's perspective. In the new federal setup, our priority is to strengthen the federal governance for sustainable development. We have integrated urban development planning to strengthen relationship between the local government through a cluster and territorial approach, and to strengthen capacity and different level of government, to guide sustainable urbanization, to contribute to national economy. Climate crisis is at our doorstep. Despite near zero contribution to global emissions, Nepal is among the vulnerable countries to climate change. We are facing its devastating impacts in the form of the landslide, urban flooding, inundation, drought, and rising temperature in our cities, among others, in an increasing trend, but our preparation is not sufficient to tackle climate-induced catastrophes, which is well articulated by the UN Secretary General in his recent visit to Nepal. Our snow-capped Himalayas are melting. It is threatening our settlement and infrastructure, public services, development gains, and economic stability. Before closing, I would like to emphasize the need of the integrated approach and collaboration to commit through loss and damage funds as adopted in this COP towards reducing impacts of the climate change for the countries like Nepal. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister from Nepal. Next to speak is the Minister from Nigeria.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished ladies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be here today at COP28 to discuss one of the most pressing issues of our time, that is urbanization and climate change. I would like to affirm Nigeria's commitment of upholding the principles of the Convention to address global climate change and urbanization. The world has continued to see the metamorphosis of the climate change phenomena that has resulted in depletion of the ozone layer and the resultant global warming. We believe this is the right moment to march towards with commensurate action in that regard. Urbanization, particularly in developing countries, poses significant challenges to the environment, social, and economic well-being of the people, and as such needs to be addressed urgently. Nigeria has taken critical steps to cushion these impacts. This includes improved financial commitment towards urban renewal and slum upgrading, the renew and reenactment of all enabling laws in housing and urban development, and robust plans aimed at championing green and resilient cities. Furthermore, the government is committed to providing access to adequate and affordable housing as we recognize the direct link between energy efficient and sustainable buildings and their impact on climate change. We are also advocating for the use of renewable energy and efficient building materials while promoting energy education and awareness. It is apparent that more needs to be done to address the challenges of climate change and urbanization in Nigeria, as well as other developing countries in the world. I therefore call for more multilateral cooperation to build resilience and adapt to the changing climate patterns. In addition, we are advocating for more defined roles for the traditional institutions, NGOs, and faith-based organizations that will give renewed hope to the local communities as well as integrate the genuine concern and aspirations in the climate change discuss. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I want to reiterate Nigerians' unwavering commitment to combating climate change and promoting sustainable urbanization. We recognize this issue as a global challenge, and we must work together to find viable solutions that will ensure a sustainable future for all. I'm confident that with our collective efforts, we can achieve this goal. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nigeria. So before we go to our next speaker, I have an update in terms of timing in the room. We have some challenging news that we will have to vacate the room at 12:30. So we only have 1 hour to go here, and we have lots of speakers to go. We've done the math here behind the scenes, and basically we need to limit everyone's remarks to 90 seconds, 1 minute and 30 seconds. And at that point, rather than the gongs, we're going to have to switch the mic off and switch to the next speaker. So it's going to move a lot faster by necessity so that we can hear from all of the countries and all of the cities that are here. And that will roll along. For all of you, though, who have written remarks that are longer than that, we are going to take in all of the written remarks, and they will be contributed to the minutes from this meeting. So make your most critical points, make sure you get them in the 90 seconds that you have. If you can skip the thank yous and acknowledgements, we've done lots of that, and I know everyone's appreciative of being here and thankful for our hosts. So if we go right to the clear points for 90 seconds, and then the microphone moves to the next speaker. Thank you, and apologies for having to tighten this up so that we can be out on time for the next gathering that's here. And we move on now to the Philippines.
Excellencies, thank you. The Philippines is 50% urban, and 60% of our GDP is generated by the most urbanized centers. We are, in fact, focusing on these centers as the creators of risk, but also opportunities for resilience and inclusive growth. In that direction, we have 3 points. We need to work on co-beneficial adaptation mitigation through the implementation of our NAP and the NDC implementation plan as well. Our cities are already transforming their water, energy, waste management, and transport systems in order to localize these goals. Secondly, we are enhancing investments in climate and disaster resilience by working with the private sector. Retail, water, communication service, and other private sector companies are already aligning their investments with city governments on ecosystem protection, robustness of engineering, the greening of buildings in order to actually manage the footprint of carbon as well as local adaptation needs. Thirdly, we are enhancing multi-level and multi-stakeholder collaboration for climate action, risk-based planning for multi-stakeholders, as well as multi-level partners are already adopted in national and local projects and programs, as well as in local resilience plans. Cities are critical agents of climate action. We're all here to recognize their roles and contributions. We must all work together to achieve the targets of Paris, where no ecosystem and no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philippines. Well done. A model to follow. Thank you for that. Portugal is next.
Thank you, Chair. National decarbonization strategies need to be implemented at local level. Therefore, accelerating climate action must mean accelerating local partnerships and the involvement of local communities. Portugal is committed with this CHAMP coalition to strengthen the mechanisms for multi-level climate action. Our strategy relies on transparent and on active public participation, together with regional and local approaches to support the climate transition. This happens along the entire policy cycle. During the recent update of the National Energy and Climate Plan, where we significantly increased our climate ambitions, the public consultation process was coupled with town halls in the different regions of the country, listening to local stakeholders, and embedding this feedback into the national strategy. Our climate framework law, approved in 2021, includes the elaboration of local climate action plans by local authorities, ensuring ownership of the decarbonization strategy. We provide financial support to a network of cities committed to net zero by 2030, promoting capacity building and sharing of best practices. These transparent, participated processes are of essence to ensure ownership and are the only path for us to meet our national and our global goals. Thank you. Perfect.
Fantastic. Wow, two amazing, just under the timing, which is perfect. Great work to everyone adjusting their remarks. We go on next to the Solomon Islands.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Solomon Island has less than 30% of its 700+ population live in urban areas. I'm thankful for the support of partners such as UN Habitat and ESCAP, whose work have now resulted in drawing the attention of national and subnational authorities to address climate change. We have heard a lot about climate change funds. Some of these funds have reached us through projects. However, I must be frank here that the gap between our adaptation needs and funds available for climate action through funding mechanisms set up to implement the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate and Paris Agreements is too wide and puts to shame all these global processes, including meetings such as this COP28. Finance is a critical enabler of actions to address climate change. It is important that climate finance is defined in line with the Paris Agreement. Financial resources intended to address adaptation, mitigation, and loss and damage must be A, grant-based, B, predictable, that is based on country allocations, transformational, and encumbered with onerous access, and available to subnational entities such as towns and municipalities. Distinguished delegates, this means...
Thank you very much to Solomon Islands. Thank you for making your points. We are on to Uganda.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to thank the organizers, and I would say that Uganda is committed to the urban agenda, and we also have a number of policies and laws regarding environment, but also urban development and housing. Last year in Egypt, Uganda attended the meeting that was aimed at strengthening the urban development agenda. We are looking at key critical issues in this area. The urban financing is very key in as far as managing, mitigating, but adaptation to the environment measures. We are looking at also renewable energy as Uganda, and we are also looking at greening and working on our cities as a country. I want to thank you once again, and I would say that we are also part of the AU STC number 8, which is a forum for ministers of urban development and housing, and we are going to launch the first Urban African Forum next year in Ethiopia, and we want to thank everybody for their support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you so much. And next, our last minister is from Seychelles.
Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As a small country with a population of only just 100,000 people, Seychelles is a very small contributor to global emissions. However, as a small island developing state, we remain one of the most vulnerable countries and at highest risk from the impacts of climate change. We have therefore taken the responsibility to lead from the front, and we are driving various initiatives to meet our pledges of reducing economy-wide emissions by 26.4% by 2030, and to achieve a decarbonized net zero emissions economy by 2050. Such initiatives based on a multi-level cooperation and close coordination are very challenging for a small economy like ours. We encounter obstacles due to absence of sufficient financial resources and the necessary technical capacity to further this urbanization and sustainable development agenda. I humbly call on the support of the industrialized nations to bear our pleas for support, and we firmly believe that however big or small our respective countries may be, if we work together, we can meet the pledges that we have made and design the financial innovations we need. We must not leave anyone behind. We must engage and empower our youths. A maximum rise of 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Thank you to Seychelles. And we are moving back up to the top of the alphabet. And thanks to all of our ministers for being here and honoring us with your words on behalf of your countries. We're going now to Azerbaijan.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. It was a dynamic and productive year for us since we all last met in Egypt during the COP27 at the first ever Ministerial Meeting on Urbanization and Climate Change. Azerbaijan is glad to be a part of the journey towards climate-sensitive, sustainable urbanization, including through the recent Urban October, as we have celebrated the World Habitat Day in Baku, Azerbaijan, and World Cities Day in Üsküdar, Istanbul, Turkey. Urban development is crucial for any nation's economic growth. Azerbaijan enjoyed remarkable growth over the last 2 decades. Our urban development efforts are linked to this growth in more than one way, both taking advantage of the excellent development opportunity as well as aspiring to contribute to it through well-planned, solid urban design and city planning initiatives. In the meantime, we are facing the challenge of rebuilding our lands following 30 years of occupation by neighboring Armenia. We are applying a comprehensive approach to urban planning and reconstruction, ensuring not only the physical rebuilding of infrastructure and human settlements, but also the climate resilience of ecocide-affected nature of Azerbaijan. As repeatedly stated by my country's leadership, we look forward to the era of peace and partnership and hope city planning and development can be one of the avenues of peace and partnership in the region. We consider the SDG's new urban agenda and the Paris Agreement to be important elements in achieving the above goals of peace and partnership.
Thank you very much, Azerbaijan. And we move next to China. Zhongguo.
女士们、先生们，下面我就中国政府在城市建设领域应对气候变化、参与全球治理情况做2个方面的交流。第一，大力建设绿色低碳城市。中国政府重点从6个方面发力：一是优化城市的结构和布局，合理确定开发建设的密度和强度；二是推动城市基础设施体系化、智能化、绿色化建设。 降低设施运行过程当中的能源消耗和碳排放；三是开展绿色建筑创建行动，推进绿色建造方式；四是推进建筑太阳能、光伏一体化建设，优化城市建设的用能结构；五是推动城市生态修复，完善城市生态系统；六是开展气候适应性城市建设试点，不断提高城市适应气候的变化水平。 二是积极向国际社会提供公共产品，一次推动设立世界城市日，鼓励各国定期围绕城市可持续发展议题开展交流合作。二是支持联合国人居署设立中国人居奖。去年10月召开的中国共产党第20次代表大会，为促进人类自然和和谐共生的重要任务，中国应对气候开启了新征程。 中国作为负责任的发展中大国，将积极参与全球气候治理，在世界城市日活动、绿色低碳建设、气候适应型城市发展等领域。
Thank you, 谢谢 China. Our next speaker is from France, and while you're getting ready, just a note to those countries speaking in this next segment will also have 90 seconds. We're doing very well. Thanks for your patience and in adjusting the timing. We're on to France.
Merci, Chair. Je renouvelle le ferme soutien de la France à l'importante déclaration de Chambre qui est dans la ligne droite de nos convictions et des politiques que nous menons, tant au niveau national qu'au niveau international. En France, de manière concrète, pour des projets environnementaux et sociaux, par les contractualisations sur des objectifs partagés, par les COP régionales que nous organisons et par les moyens que nous mettons à disposition, comme le fonds vert additionnel de 2,5 milliards d'euros que nous avons débloqué récemment. Les besoins urgents de rénovation et de construction dans les pays du Sud justifient que nous mettions en priorité le sujet du bâtiment durable à l'agenda. Nous sommes fiers de vous inviter à 2 événements sur le chemin du Forum urbain mondial qui se déroulera en Égypte. Le premier est le lancement du Buildings Breakthrough dans la salle Al-Waha Théâtre à 12h30 que nous lançons avec près de 30 gouvernements et 18 initiatives majeures. Le deuxième est le Forum mondial bâtiment et climat qui se déroulera à Paris les 7 et 8 mars 2024 et qui réunira pour la première fois les ministres de la construction et tous leurs partenaires. Nous vous attendons nombreux à ces 2 événements. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Thank you, France. Coming in under time. Thank you. And next up is Guinea.
Bonjour. Distingués invités, la République de Guinée, en tant que pays membre de l'Alliance, s'inscrit dans la dynamique de la lutte contre le changement climatique en prônant des méthodes et pratiques écologiquement responsables. Le gouvernement de la Guinée entend promouvoir son développement économique et social sur une politique de la décentralisation et de déconcentration permettant la participation inclusive de tous les acteurs aux différents niveaux de prise de décision. Mesdames et messieurs, les ressources mobilisables par les États ne suffisent pas aujourd'hui à financer les plans de développement locaux élaborés par les conseillers communaux à cause de l'insuffisance des moyens financiers. C'est pour cette raison que la Guinée soutient l'opérationnalisation de l'UFI afin de booster le financement des projets communautaires pour assurer le gap de financement en faveur de l'environnement. Ainsi, pour faire face à ces contraintes, il serait judicieux de développer des partenariats à tous les niveaux pour la réalisation des projets prioritaires pour le développement communautaire. La présente rencontre est une opportunité d'échange entre les parties prenantes dans la mise en œuvre des projets et surtout identifier les possibilités de financement des projets des membres de l'Alliance. En tout état de lieu, la Guinée soutient les efforts déployés pour une urbanisation durable et résiliente. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Merci, Guinea. Next speaker is Italy.
Excellencies, good morning. Within the G20, Italy stressed the importance of promoting nature-based solutions in urban areas to contrast the effects of climate change and improve energy efficiency. We believe that international collaboration can help accelerate policy and technology implementation, share learnings, and strengthen engagement around financing and investment. The Italian Ministry for the Environment and Energy Security is financing the AID Digital Demand-Driven Electricity Networks initiative to accelerate modernization of power systems and digitalization in emerging and developing economies as a concrete contribution to climate change mitigation and adaptation. One of the 3 then-funded pilot projects being developed in Brazil with the support of the UNEP is contributing to promote the decarbonization in the social housing sector in view of justice transition. Moreover, Italy keeps on prioritizing the localization of the SDGs as one of the main tools to achieve the Agenda 2030 implementation. The Italian Ministry of Environmental and Energy Security founded 30 pilot action led by Italian metropolitan cities with a multi-level approach and both vertical and horizontal coordination between and among the central and local organizations. The overall object is the planting of less than 6.6 million trees. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Italy. Our next country is Laos.
Excellency, Laos PDR repeat urbanization, post-sustainability, challenge completely linked with climate change. Our national development plan now integrate with strategy for resilient urban area, aligning with global climate change goals. Emphasize circular economy, wind manage urban zone waste sustainability, focus on reduction, reuse, and recycling. Our government integrate climate action in the development plan, amplify the urban low emission development, deposit achievement, challenge policy, enhancing property and quality of life for all, contribute to global climate change efforts. The law PDR is integrated focus just safety, just safe, healthy, and sustainable city. Thank you.
Thank you, Lau. Next country is Madagascar.
Merci d'avoir donné la parole, Son Excellence. La participation de Madagascar à cet événement démontre la préoccupation du gouvernement malgache quant aux effets et conséquences des changements climatiques. Et comme beaucoup de pays du monde, Madagascar en a été épargné. Actuellement, Madagascar compte 173 villes qui concentrent en elles seules plus de 30% de la population et produisent 70% du PNB national. Cependant, ces villes, quelle que soit leur taille et leur localisation, sont confrontées à des problèmes de gouvernance, d'insuffisance d'infrastructures, de désorganisation du système de transport, de pénurie de logements, de prolifération de bidonvilles, d'insécurité foncière, d'occupation illicite. Depuis un certain temps, nous subissons de plein fouet les effets des changements climatiques. On peut citer à titre d'exemple les cyclones, les inondations et les sécheresses. Il faut dire que les zones urbaines sont de plus en plus vulnérables aux risques par rapport aux zones rurales selon la densité de la population, de la concentration des acteurs et de la variété des activités dans les zones géographiques relativement étroites. C'est la raison pour laquelle l'État malgache a décidé d'interdire de suspendre tout projet de remblai dans la capitale et son environnement. Pour faire face à cette situation très alarmante, Madagascar collabore déjà avec plusieurs entités et partenaires techniques et financiers comme l'UNU Habitat, la Banque mondiale, l'AFD et l'Union européenne, la PBB et beaucoup d'autres encore. Le but est de faire...
Thank you, Madagascar. Our next comments will come from Malawi.
Appreciation, Chairperson. Government of Malawi is committed to the agreements, mainly in policy affirmation implementation for its MDAs. Recently, we were affected by the cyclone Freddy, and this affected our livelihood, food systems, water systems, energy, and road infrastructures. Malawi needs further support to implement adaptive mechanisms in our urban settings. We solidly join all calling for unlocking transparent, inclusive financing towards climate change to implement adaptive mechanisms. As a signatory to the Paris Agreement, recognizing the importance of collaboration and partnerships required, Government of Malawi will join the Coalition for High Ambition multilevel partnership initiatives. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Malawi. You have the first prize now for the shortest and strongest, boldest comments. So next up is Mali, our new minister from Mali.
Mesdames et messieurs, notre réunion doit contribuer à créer une plateforme pérenne de mobilisation, de promotion et d'échange de notre expertise et de nos pratiques prouvant l'urbanisation durable, ici en plein cœur du processus de la COP, et de refléter et porter une parole commune, notamment autour des enjeux et des solutions pour le financement des stratégies et plans d'action nationaux de l'urbain dont nous expérimentons toutes et tous l'urgence. Les conséquences du processus d'urbanisation rapide en Afrique s'accompagnent d'un corollaire dangereux, la création de zones et de populations moins armées pour faire face au changement climatique. Il y a eu de signaler que les infrastructures résilientes, les instruments financiers à large spectre et les systèmes d'alerte rapide qui permettent d'atténuer les risques sont autant d'outils essentiels pour les villes qui s'efforcent de s'adapter, de protéger la vie et les moyens de subsistance de leurs habitants. Les villes peuvent montrer la voie à survivre pour mieux se relever après la pandémie, réduire les émissions à l'échelle et à la vitesse nécessaire pour la planète et garantir un avenir résilient à des milliers de personnes. Le lancement de l'initiative UFI constitue à la fois un symbole du pouvoir d'innovation africain, mais également une première démarche concertée régionale de mise en œuvre opérationnelle du champ. Je termine en rappelant notre engagement à œuvrer pour des zones urbaines qui soient non seulement des moteurs de croissance, mais également des modèles de durabilité, de résilience et de prospérité pour toutes et tous. Ensemble, nous pouvons transformer nos villes et ainsi transférer notre...
Merci, Mali. Thank you for your comments. Our next country is South Africa.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to everyone. South Africa's adaptation response in relation to human settlements use the 3 spheres of government as complementary role players, with local government taking the lead, while national and provincial government provides an enabling and supportive role. Our thinking is that a strong policy framework at national level is important for guiding local adaptation strategies, including establishing standards of best practices. As part of national response on the 24th October 2023, Cabinet passed the South African Climate Change Bill, which requires all organs of state that perform climate change-related functions or are entrusted with achievements of sustainable environment to review, coordinate, harmonize their policies and programs. In line with the bill, the National Department of Human Settlements is embarking on multi-level, multi-stakeholder engagement. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we remain committed to building climate resilience, human settlements, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions in our living spaces through just transition towards economic, friendly, and nature-based solutions. The Department of Human Settlements, we have developed the white paper for human settlements, which has been approved by Cabinet for public comments.
Thank you very much, South Africa. Our next country is the United States of America.
It is my honor to be here on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration and the United States Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia L. Fudge. Across the globe, our urban environments significantly impact and are impacted significantly by the changing climate. That is why we were proud to work with partners like the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group and the Under 2 Coalition to launch the Subnational Climate Action Leaders Exchange last year. And that's why this year we are so excited that this work has incubated a new initiative, Lowering Organic Waste Methane, or low methane, to harness the transformative role that cities and states can play in cutting methane emissions, one of the fastest things we can do to keep a safe 1.5 degrees Celsius future within reach. Our federal investments domestically in the United States empower communities to come up with and execute plans that meet their unique climate change needs. While decisions and work happen at the local level, the U.S. federal government helps our local communities effectively deploy investments to address our dual housing affordability and climate crises. Over the next decade, the Biden-Harris administration has made investments that will provide billions of dollars for building efficiency upgrades, solar generation, and other clean energy deployment, green workforce development training, creation of a national green bank, and much, much more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, USA. And next up is Samoa.
Shows the commitment to fostering sustainable, inclusive, and resilient urban development through bold and transformational change, guided by the 2050 strategy for a Blue Pacific continent, as well as the Pacific New Urban Agenda and its 4 pillars. In a step towards strengthening our commitment to our urban developments and resilience amidst the phase of the climate change, we have joined hands with the Global Covenant of Mayors for the development of the Apia City Climate Action Plan at the local level, which prioritizes on planning for our urban waterways drainage system. In saying that, Samoa urges the institutionalizing of sustainable urban developments and drive for stringent policy within each nation at the local level, especially with GRUP agencies framework. once again for time. Thank you.
Thank you, Samoa. Thank you to the new minister. So we are through the first segment with countries. We're going to shift gears now into segment 2. I'm going to continue to chair with the room's blessing, and we are going to shift to hearing from our other co-convening countries. And then we have an intervention from Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and we have a few more ministers to follow in the second segment before we go into closing. So we're doing great. Everyone's done fantastic, keeping their remarks shorter. Thank you for your work on that. And we're going to keep to our time and be right on time getting through the building. So we're going to hear first from our co-convening countries before the ministers, and we begin with Egypt.
Thank you, Chair. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Minister, Excellencies, good morning. At first, I would like to thank and congratulate UN Habitat and COP28 presidency for their leadership of the second ministerial meeting. We stand at a crossroad in defining our city roles in battling and resolving the climate crisis. However, current national pledges fell short in curbing harmful emissions and achieve the target of the Paris Agreement. Our local government often lack the technical and financial resources to drive local climate action. Therefore, cities are in the heart, collaboration is our hope, and localization is our action. Last year marked a turning point by launching the Sustainable Urban Resilience for the Next Generation Surge Initiative in COP27. I am glad to see that Surge Initiative is recalled again today and enhancing interlinkages between urbanization and climate change. We highly recommend to recall this initiative in the coming ministerial meeting during COP every year and also during the World Urban Forum. Finally, localization leads to globalization, so it's a time to a multi-level partnership at local, national, and global levels for resilient, sustainable, and inclusive cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Egypt. Well timed. Our next co-convening country to speak is Papua New Guinea.
Thank you, Chair, Excellency, Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I attended the inaugural COP27 Ministerial Meeting on Urbanization and Climate Change in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Then later we attended 6th Pacific Urban Forum in Suva, Fiji. In that forum, I had honor to invite fellow Pacific Island ministries to attend the COP28 Ministerial Meeting on Urbanization and Climate Change here in Dubai. Today, I would like to reaffirm my country's commitment that we will endure to spread the message of multi-level climate action in Papua New Guinea, and as the host of the next Pacific Urban Forum across the Pacific, to ensure that the climate resilience framework is properly institutionalized to cushion the ill effects of climate change in our towns and communities. Return the signed CHAMP pledge to the COP28 presidency. Point 3, reach out to the negotiators to ensure that the multi-level action is strongly integrated in the outcome document and decision of this COP28. Point 4, request the international community to provide adequate funding for climate-responsive, sustainable urbanization and housing. With that, thank you.
Thank you so much, Papua New Guinea, Minister. So we're going to go next to hear from Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who's the president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Welcome, Professor Sachs.
Thank you very much, and I will be very brief. The UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, in advance of next year's finance COP, has established a global commission for urban SDG finance. And this commission is working to ensure that direct financing of subnational governments, city governments, will be considered in each of the various channels of finance. mitigation, adaptation, losses and damages, nature-based solutions. If you are interested in participating or learning more, sacs@columbia.edu. This is an advertisement to be engaged, but the idea of the Commission is to make specific recommendations in each of the funding modalities to ensure that cities have access to direct financing. So sacs@columbia.edu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that ongoing body of work. We look forward to that coming forward. We are going to now hear from the minister from Côte d'Ivoire. We are hearing from ministers and financing institutions in this second segment. Côte d'Ivoire, you have the floor.
Mesdames, Messieurs, le gouvernement de la Côte d'Ivoire et l'Alliance des ministres africains en charge du développement urbain saluent les résultats de cette COP historique et en particulier le lancement du Fonds sur les pertes et dommages, l'accès direct des collectivités locales aux ressources de ce fonds, ainsi que l'évolution de l'Alliance CAMP. Mesdames, Messieurs, comme vous le savez, l'Afrique est le continent le moins émetteur de gaz à effet de serre et également la région qui, d'ici 2050, connaîtra le plus fort taux d'urbanisation au monde. Ce tableau fait donc de l'Afrique la région de tous les défis, mais aussi celle de toutes les opportunités. C'est pourquoi, après avoir signé CAMP, les membres de l'Alliance des ministres africains pour le développement urbain, qui compte à ce jour plus de 35 pays actifs, ont décidé de lancer en partenariat avec le FMDV une initiative pionnière intitulée Urban Opportunity Fast Forward Initiative, qui se veut un hub panafricain d'expertise et d'ingénierie financière en mesure d'accélérer et de faciliter l'accès au financement de nos ministères ainsi que des gouvernements locaux. Nous lançons donc solennellement un appel à l'ensemble des partenaires au développement pour œuvrer afin de mobiliser le plus largement possible les ressources disponibles et nous redonner le pouvoir d'impulsion des négociations d'ingénierie dont nous avons besoin pour faire face plus efficacement au changement climatique. Vous pouvez compter sur l'Afrique, vous pouvez compter sur nous. Je vous remercie. Thank you very much.
Merci, Côte d'Ivoire. We are going to hear now from Mayor Aki Sawyer from Freetown, Sierra Leone on this topic of localizing climate finance, who is also the co-chair of C40. Mayor Aki Sawyer, are you here?
Dear Excellencies, at C40 cities, we know that 98% of our member cities are already facing extreme climate events and threats. But cities are taking action. 80 of the C40 cities have a transition plan to deliver climate action in line with the ambitions of the Paris Agreement. Examples of success abound. One such is the work going on in Warsaw, moving directly from coal stoves to heat pumps in low-income families, bypassing gas as a fossil fuel. If global decision makers can join forces with local climate leaders, then we can together lower emissions and keep the aim of the Paris Agreement alive. But despite all of this, less than 25% of local governments actually include climate actions in their NDCs. That is why we are so excited about CHAMP, because together it means that we can develop implementation plans that will keep us within the 1.5 limit. In summary, as the chair of C40 cities, I urge national governments to prioritize multi-level partnerships to support cities in building resilient, sustainable environments for us all. That means also ensuring that cities have access to finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for representing the mayors here with your strong voice. Next, we have a National Bank voice from the CEO of Mosako, DBSA South Africa.
Thank you. Global trends show that cities are centers of power and pivotal hubs for economic, cultural, and political influence. This is evidenced by unabated migration trends towards cities, Cities are therefore the epicenter for climate resilience interventions to achieve NDCs and net zero ambitions. This means that there is a need for development finance institutions to take a part in this. The Development Bank of Southern Africa focuses and prioritizes funding for cities. We administer both financial and non-financial interventions, such as planning support, project preparation, concessional funding. This includes tapping into global green funds like the GCF and GEF, and providing operations and maintenance support as well. And we offer empirical evidence that is feasible. We have provided infrastructure planning support where we partnered with the GEF to embed nature-based solutions, biodiversity, and climate resilience into infrastructure planning, and through our partnership with the GCF to support cities in addressing climate-induced water scarcity challenges using the Water Reuse Program, which is the largest adaptation investment by the DBSA and GCF to date. We believe that, okay, there we.
Thank you so much. Smooth finish, thank you. Next is the subnational bank voice, and this is the General Director from ANICT, Mr. Koulibaly.
From Mali. Merci, chers invités. En tant que directeur général de l'Agence nationale d'investissement des collectivités territoriales du Mali, une institution nationale ayant pour mandat l'accompagnement technique et financier des collectivités locales, nous sommes bien placés pour reconnaître les besoins des villes et des collectivités en matière d'accès au financement et faire le lien entre les organisations internationales, les banques multilatérales de développement, les acteurs nationaux de l'écosystème de financement et les collectivités territoriales. Les intermédiaires financiers en Afrique jouent un rôle fondamental pour remédier à l'accès au financement des villes africaines. C'est dans ce cadre-là que l'agence que je dirige rétrocède aux collectivités les ressources pour les besoins d'investissement et d'assistance technique et garantit les prêts des collectivités auprès des banques. À titre d'illustration, ces 20 dernières années, l'agence a eu à gérer 800 millions de dollars pour des besoins d'investissement des collectivités pour environ 25 000 projets et autour de 835 collectivités territoriales que compose le Mali. J'aimerais notifier que ce travail considérable que nous menons n'est pas suffisamment reconnu dans les forums internationaux. C'est à cet effet qu'avec le Fonds mondial des villes, nous avons lancé il y a un an un cadre de mouvement, dans le cadre du mouvement de finance en commun, l'Alliance africaine des banques des territoires, au sein de laquelle mon agent joue un rôle actif. Cette alliance regroupe une quarantaine d'institutions qui ont pour mandat d'accompagner.
Merci. Thank you very much for subnational banking intervention. So we're shifting gears once again to localizing climate finance, hearing from our national delegations. We're going to hear first again from ministers, run through 4 or 5 ministers, and then we'll come back through the alphabet for the last number of speakers who are government representatives. So we start this segment with Cameroon, not Cameroon, Comoros.
Monsieur le Président, honorable assistance, avant tout propos, je voudrais remercier les autorités des Émirats arabes unis pour l'accueil chaleureux qui nous a été réservé et au comité d'organisation de la COP28 pour avoir invité les Comores à prendre part à cette session ministérielle sur l'urbanisation face au changement climatique. C'est une opportunité pour les pays vulnérables au changement climatique d'exprimer leurs préoccupations en matière d'accès au financement climatique. Il est important dans le cadre de notre réunion de jeter les bases d'une réflexion sur l'avenir durable de nos pays, mais aussi sur les capacités à mener des actions concrètes pour réduire les risques liés au changement climatique. En effet, les Comores, au même titre que les petits États insulaires en développement, sont confrontés à plusieurs aléas climatiques qui sont aujourd'hui accentués par le phénomène de changement climatique et malgré sa faible contribution aux gaz à effet de serre, notre pays veut poursuivre l'objectif qui s'est fixé de demeurer un puits de carbone et participer ainsi à l'effort global de décarbonisation de la planète. Cet objectif ne peut être atteint sans avoir un accès facile à des financements dédiés au climat à travers des mécanismes flexibles. C'est ainsi que les Comores ont adhéré à l'Alliance des ministres africains pour le financement du développement urbain par l'endossement de la déclaration d'Abidjan en date du 13/04/2023 qui vise à ce que nos stratégies et plans d'action nationaux reçoivent les financements appropriés pour parvenir à un développement urbain durable et résilient. Je salue également avec espérance le lancement de l'initiative IFI d'accès rapide.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre from Comoros. Thank you, and we're next hearing from the State Secretary from Germany.
Thank you, dear colleagues and partners. We all know climate action at scale requires substantial resources. On the other hand, we also know the urban climate finance gap is massive. From an international cooperation perspective, we are convinced that together we are greater than the sum of our parts. We need stronger collaboration to make most effective use of limited public resources. One important example for this collaboration is the Leadership for Urban Climate Investment, short LUCI. LUCI provides a framework for joint action across the value chain of urban project development. It was developed under the leadership of Germany in 2019. Now, more than 20 initiatives are active in the LUCI framework, implemented by partners, including many of you present today. Jointly, we aim to strengthen capacities for 2,000 cities and link 1,000 projects to finance until 2024. Germany is supporting several partnerships and actions and local climate finance initiatives over the last year, amounting to more than 200 million euros. For example, the City Climate Finance Gap Fund is the biggest global multi-donor trust fund for cities. We are working also on a National Development Banks for Action Climate, the NUCA program. It is the latest addition to our LUCI framework. Germany will continue to demonstrate its leadership and is more than happy to deepen collaboration on these matters, because together we are greater than the sum of our parts. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Germany. Our next minister is from Fiji.
Dear Excellencies, Fiji, like any other developing island nation in the Pacific, is highly exposed and vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. We are faced with the threats of rising sea levels, increased frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. Experiences we have encountered are devastating, and it is imperative that climate change is made easily accessible to us and our neighboring island nations for the well-being and safety of our people. Our cities and urban areas, being centers of economic growth and development, hold a key role in addressing this crisis. Thus, they must be equipped with the necessary resources to build sustainable and resilient communities. It is imperative that we bridge the financing gap and unlock new avenues of investment to support the development and implementation of climate-resilient infrastructure and housing projects. To achieve this, partnership will be critical. Collaboration between governments, international organizations, financial institutions, and civil society is essential to leverage financial resources, knowledge sharing, and technical expertise. By coming together, we can pool our resources and develop effective strategies to address the challenges faced by the housing and urban sectors in accessing funding. Resilience should be a guiding principle in our efforts to access funding for the housing and urban sectors. As we witness increasing frequencies and intensity of weather-related events, it is essential to build homes and infrastructure that can withstand these challenges. By incorporating climate-resilient designs, green technologies, and sustainable practices, we can ensure that our cities and urban areas are better equipped to face the impacts of.
Thank you to Fiji, Mr. Minister. And our final minister speaking is Zambia, followed by Japan.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. Zambia is committed to promoting the resilience and mitigation of climate change, impacts focusing decentralization, sustainable and transformative development. It has also given priority to climate action. Mr. Chairman, there are challenges faced at local government level in building productive partnerships in climate action. Allow me to just stress a few of them. This is limited multi-level action, climate interventions that are focused mostly on national level. Local authorities do have limitations in the following areas: capacity to build, respond to climate challenges, provisions of sustainable public infrastructure, control of land use, settlements and biosensitive areas, financial and human capital resources for effectively engaging with climate fund partners. Most of the climate fund partners do not share the same aspirations, for they operate on commercial basis. This is a problem that requires to be solved. Mr. Chairman, in actualizing the decentralization, allocating more resources, we find this to be solutions to addressing the issue of climate finance. To give deliberate policy to local authorities to develop and implement integrated development plans are another. To streamline the policy and legislative framework to enable knowledge and understanding of climate change and its effects is also another. To leverage emerging climate.
Thank you very much for that. We go next to that, oh, my apologies. We go next from Zambia to Japan.
Thank you, Chair. At the G7 ministers meeting, which was held in Japan this July, with the participation from UN Habitat, we discussed on achieving sustainable urban development together. The meeting communique emphasized the importance of market condition improvement and local government. So therefore, Japan is now promoting the utilization of private funds to implement localizing climate finance, which is the theme of this session. As the ESG investment is growing, it is important to encourage private sectors to invest in the project with environmental and social benefits, such as urban development with rich green spaces and waters, which also contribute to enhance their company values. To this end, we are now working to establish an evaluation and certification system that objectifies the environmental and social impact of projects. Furthermore, Japan is now focusing on the use of digital technologies such as the 3D city model of Project Plateau. In conclusion, as a country with history that people and nature coexist, Japan will continue to cooperate with other countries in order for cities to contribute to climate change mitigation. If you are interested in any of the Japanese initiatives.
Thank you very much, Japan. And we are next on to Spain, followed by Indonesia.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair and colleagues. The cost of climate change in our cities is clear, whether in terms of economic loss, health impacts, but also lives. Extreme weather events, rising temperatures, drought, and at the same time, cities are obviously key in climate action, concentrating most of the population and wealth, but also energy consumption and emissions. In Spain, we have recently created a specific ministry for the urban agenda to address these challenges in a coherent way. And obviously, it's essential to mobilize both public and private investment to transform cities in a coherent way. In this context, Spain's recovery and resilience plan from the COVID pandemic has been a plan for the green transformation of the country, and therefore a plan for the green transformation of cities. We've dedicated over 1.5 billion to transforming cities for pedestrian and cycle mobility, 1.6 billion for electric mobility, 700 million for small municipalities, and 120 million for nature-based solutions in cities. But as well as focusing on the financing, it's important to have coherent policy making. We are starting to see cities which are starting to reverse some of the sustainable mobility measures, such as cycle lanes and pedestrian streets, meaning that they have to give back some of the public funds they have been allocated. Therefore, it's important to ensure that we can continue to work together at the municipal and national level to ensure that policy is coherent, funding is used in the appropriate way and irreversible for the improvement of the quality of life of citizens. Continuing to work with our international partners is what we're looking forward to doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Spain. Next up is Indonesia.
Thank you, Chair. In our battle against climate change is crucial. This meeting is timely in addressing the importance of multi-level climate action and expanding urban climate finance. Indeed, the actions require full support and collaborations of every stakeholders, including governments at all levels, is needed. Excellencies, dear colleagues, within paradigm shift being envisioned by the UAE presidency, we support the call for putting nature, people, life, and livelihood at the heart of climate change. Indonesia aims to establish more vertical and horizontal climate partnerships to mitigate and adapt the impact of climate change. We have applied in the big cities, provinces, not to mention villages. Through Climate Villages programs, Indonesia communities able to determine climate actions, need and measure, as well as mobilize resources for adaptation and mitigation implementations. With 4,218 sites in urban and rural areas, in 2022, Indonesia is targeting to achieve 20,000 climate sites by next year. By working together toward a shared vision of collaborations, multi-level climate actions can significantly contribute to the progress and our journey towards sustainable futures for our generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Indonesia. Okay, that is the last of our country speakers before we go into closing, but we have a few speakers left to hear from with respect to international finance. And the first of those is Ms. Tatiana Molcian, the Executive Secretary of UNECE.
Thank you. Excellencies, we all agree that sustainability built and planned cities can drastically reduce emissions and mitigate the effects of climate change, preserving the well-being and quality of life of citizens. And we also agree that partnerships between national and local governments is key to achieving the sustainable goals. But in what forms exactly can cities diplomacy materialize within the multilateral system? Allow me to tell you how we do this at UNECE. We have, under our Committee on Urban Development, Housing and Land Management, established a Forum of Mayors. And this is a forum, it is designed that mayors can participate in their own capacity, so not as part of national delegation or as observers. And one of the key objectives is really to increase coherence and complementarity between the local, regional, and global levels. Cities have added not only their voices in the discussions, but as well concrete recommendations, commitment, for instance, by adopting a Geneva Declaration of Mayors. And this document identifies the main goals for sustainable development cities. And the next session will be in October 2024, and we will address at this forum how cities, how urban formats can contribute to the pact of the future. And I hope to see many of you around these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Secretary. All right. The role of financing institutions and non-party actors is obviously critical in terms of localizing climate finance and providing more resources. We're going to hear from 3 speakers, 1 minute each. Next, before we go into our closing segment with representatives from Brazil. So first up, we have the Adaptation Fund, followed by the World Bank.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's inspiring to be at this important event and witness the efforts and commitment by local governments and stakeholders. At the Adaptation Fund, we witness a rising interest in projects related to climate change adaptation in urban settings, which relate to deploying innovative solutions. For example, the fund is pleased to be collaborating with UN Habitat to support countries with impactful projects like the one in Madagascar, Malawi, Mozambique, and Comoros, helped developing local governance capacity in risk management and resilience planning, as well as support minimizing loss and damage of disasters. The project in Malaysia engages the city of Penang and its local actors in deploying innovative nature-based solutions to address heat waves and flood risks. We look forward to continuing our support and engagement for a more resilient urban environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Next up, we have Ms. Anna Wellenstein from the World Bank.
Thank you very much. We as MDBs recognize there are a number of barriers to climate action in cities and have developed strategies and programs to scale up how we address and support cities going forward. At the World Bank, in the last year alone, we approved over $8 billion in financing in 40 projects for cities across 30 developing countries. We also have technical assistance programs like the City Climate Finance Gap Fund and the City Resilience Program. We collaborate closely among MDBs, including, for example, with EBRD in the urban space through the Global Infrastructure Fund, which is particularly important because of its private sector focus. We're part of the MDB City Working Group that will be meeting here at COP later today to discuss how we can do more together. But of course, there is much more we can do and need to do. We're glad to note the MDBs are reforming to be better able to support cities in their climate action. Yet the MDBs alone cannot solve this issue. It requires national stakeholders, industry, private sector, civil society, and city networks, and we look forward to working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the World Bank for your voice here. And our third and final financial institution is Pegasus Capital Advisors.
Your Excellencies, I am the CEO of Pegasus Capital Advisors. We manage two funds anchored by the Green Climate Fund. Our subnational climate fund is the only such fund focused on local and urban green infrastructure in the Global South. And then also we manage the Global Fund for Coral Reefs, which has a significant focus on coastal cities in the Global South. Cities are at the forefront of the need for climate investment and solutions, as you've said. My message to you is clear. We have opportunities now in multiple sectors. Don't wait for new technologies. We can invest in areas like cold chain storage, energy-efficient broadband, resilient and energy-efficient housing, and more. To highlight this week, we've signed a partnership with UCLGA to bring these sorts of innovations throughout the cities of Africa, large and small cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your words here to Pegasus. We're going to shift finally now to our closing segment. Thank you all for your brevity and your courageous words here. Obviously, we need to turn these words into action, particularly at the local level. That's why we're here. We're going to do a closing segment with the country of Brazil, with the minister from Brazil. We're going to hear from the state of Para, and then we're going to hear from the mayor of Belém. So we have a minister, a governor, and mayor to show that multi-level action. And we are going to first hear the lead-off from the Minister of Cities in Brazil.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will speak in Portuguese. O público aqui presente dá o testemunho da importância das cidades no debate climático. Com altos representantes de autoridades e parlamentares de governos nacionais, regionais e locais, de representantes de organismos internacionais, com destaque para a ONU Habitat, de entidades da sociedade civil. Gostaria de fazer uma menção muito especial aos países que, assim como o Brasil, assinaram a Declaração CHAMP e a endossaram, pois ela reúne muito do espírito, do propósito e, sobretudo, das ações que discutimos ao longo das nossas reuniões aqui nesta sala. Gostaria de reconhecer o trabalho e a liderança inspiradora da minha amiga Maimuna Sharif, à frente da ONU Habitat, no momento de sua partida e que o Brasil muito lamenta. Como presidente da Minurv, considero fundamental que a sucessora ou sucessor seja do Sul Global e especificamente da América Latina e do Caribe, com perfil a dar continuidade ao importante legado que nos deixa a nossa atual diretora executiva. Sinto-me duplamente honrado de estar aqui nesta segunda reunião ministerial de urbanização e mudança do clima. Primeiramente, por afirmar que o Brasil voltou ao cenário internacional sob a liderança do presidente Lula, demonstrando a sua importância e capacidade ao diálogo. Em segundo, por trazer a pauta urbana para o centro do debate climático em um contexto de recriação do Ministério das Cidades, cuja extinção havia adormecido as pautas urbanas e silenciado o diálogo multinível. Retomamos as instâncias de participação social com o retorno do Conselho das Cidades e o profundo respeito ao Pacto Federativo, apoiando os atores locais, estados e municípios para a gestão e implementação de suas políticas urbanas e metropolitanas. 85% da população brasileira vive nas cidades e, ao reconhecer a importância da pauta urbana para o centro do debate climático, destaco o processo de formulação da Política Nacional de Desenvolvimento Urbano, com a incorporação da lente climática em alinhamento à Agenda 2030. Nesse âmbito, incentivamos os municípios para uma nova geração de planos diretores e trabalharemos no apoio aos entes subnacionais para a elaboração de 260 planos locais de adaptação climática até 2026. Além das ações de mitigação, defendemos o fortalecimento da agenda de adaptação no Brasil, focada nos mais vulneráveis às mudanças do clima. Para isso, é importante que o financiamento climático considere o tamanho dos desafios urbanos, tendo em vista que apenas 10% dos investimentos climáticos chegam ao nível local. O governo brasileiro tem feito a sua parte, retomando os investimentos federais para o apoio aos municípios na construção da resiliência e redução das desigualdades. O novo Programa de Aceleração do Crescimento investirá 340 bilhões de dólares em todo o Brasil. Exclusivamente para nós, do Ministério das Cidades, ainda este ano serão aplicados 9 bilhões de dólares a partir de duas frentes, o eixo Cidades Sustentáveis e Resilientes e o eixo Água para Todos. O novo PAC investirá na modernização da mobilidade urbana de forma sustentável, renovação de frota, urbanização de favelas, esgotamento sanitário, gestão de resíduos sólidos e prevenção de riscos com obras de contenção de encostas e combate a enchentes. As periferias ganharão destaque no novo governo do Brasil. O nosso programa Periferia Viva traz as demais perspectivas das comunidades, aproximando o governo das vozes das periferias. O programa atuará na melhoria da infraestrutura e das moradias, equipamentos sociais, inovação e tecnologia e, sobretudo, fortalecimento social e comunitário. Retomamos o programa Minha Casa Minha Vida, um dos maiores programas habitacionais do mundo, com a meta de 2 milhões de unidades habitacionais até 2026 e sendo 1 milhão de moradias para famílias com renda até $400. Entendemos que não haverá justiça climática sem justiça urbana. Nesse sentido, reiteramos o compromisso do governo brasileiro de trabalhar em estreita cooperação com os entes locais, apoiando cidades, estados e regiões em termos de planejamento e financiamento e implementação de medidas efetivas para responder à crise climática. Senhoras e senhores, a demonstração mais evidente do compromisso brasileiro com a governança multinível, com o olhar em Belém do Pará, na COP30, está em pleno alinhamento e cooperação entre os governos nacional, estadual e municipal. Nós três unidos com objetivos do desenvolvimento sustentável e convencidos de que as cidades são peças-chave para a transformação que todos buscamos. Por fim, faço aqui um convite a todos e a todas para um novo encontro ministerial como este, na minha cidade, Belém, em 2025, para vocês estarem na COP30, na minha amada Belém do Pará, no nosso querido país, o Brasil. Muito obrigado a todos e a todas.
Obrigado, Minister. Thank you very much. And from the mayor, I understand the governor is not here from Pará, but the mayor of Belém.
Meu nome é Edmilson Rodrigues, sou prefeito de Belém, uma cidade amazônica situada na encruzilhada do Oceano Atlântico e o Rio Amazonas, no Brasil, e que será a sede da primeira COP na Amazônia em 2025. Senhores e senhoras, esta reunião ministerial é um evento único que reforça o compromisso do Acordo de Paris e dos grandes pactos para a ação climática em vários níveis. É imperativo que aprimoremos a governança para garantir uma resposta justa e inclusiva à emergência climática em nossas comunidades e para elevar de uma vez por todas as ambições das contribuições nacionais determinadas. A COP30 será a COP da Amazônia, mas sobretudo da Amazônia urbana. Belém, como atual presidente do Fórum de Cidades Amazônicas, sabe da importância de colocar as cidades do Rio e da Floresta no centro da discussão sobre as mudanças climáticas. Belém já é parceira estratégica para reforçar os compromissos mundiais para reduzir o aquecimento global. Em 2025, nos veremos outra vez em Belém.
Obrigado, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much to our future hosts from Brazil in Belém. And appreciate the multi-level words of multi-level partnership that are so strong from Brazil, and lots to demonstrate between now and 2025. So we are to the end of our speakers. I want to acknowledge our chair. Maimuna is going to have to make an exit for her next event, and I'm just going to wrap up with a short version of the draft outcome. And the full version of the outcome statement is available. You can read the QR code on the screens now. But it will be available, our statement on urbanization and climate change going forward. But just to give a very brief summary of the statement from the COP28 Local Climate Action Summit. Thank you, Maimuna. From the Local Climate Action Summit and Ministerial Meeting on Urbanization and Climate Change. COP28 advanced collaborative, inclusive, and ambitious multi-level climate action by convening an unprecedented mobilization of stakeholders committed to achieving the targets of the Paris Agreement. At COP28, cities, regions, and national governments discussed how to achieve the targets of the Paris Agreement through multi-level climate action, and to identify and strengthen levers to increase and accelerate deployment of climate finance for subnational governments, respecting national legislations, regulations, and circumstances. The outcomes are put forward below with 10 points anchoring around the key message: encouraging national governments to advance multi-level climate action, encouraging local governments to increase climate action, encouraging to have this ministerial meeting regularly at COP, and encouraging all parties to consider these outcomes in their deliberations on the negotiated decisions at COP28. Thank you to all of you for your patience, for being here, for your excellent interventions here today at the Ministerial. I know it was a challenge with the timing, but we got everybody's voice heard for a piece of this meeting, which was very critical. And we know we can do better in the next time around, but thank you for all of your hard work today, and from here to our next meeting at COP. Thank you very much to all.
Honourable guests, thank you for attending this ministerial meeting on urbanisation and climate change. Could I please ask you to vacate the room as quickly as possible due to another meeting starting immediately? Thank you very much.